Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Firefighters podcast, where we seek to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operator through a series of wide-ranging conversations. Now, before we go any further, just hit that rate, follow, or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people. Now, here's what we've got for you today. Hey folks, welcome back to the podcast. Today's a really interesting hybrid episode because it's technically an incident debrief, but because of the experience and passion and interest that comes from my guest today, we also go into so many other areas. We actually dip into a few other incidents and use them as touchstones, as reference points for specific tactical adjustments and procedural changes that have come into the service as a result of many other poignant incidents that have shaped the way we operate as firefighters on the ground. So my guest today is Chris Westfield. Chris is a good friend of mine and started his career with London Fire Brigade back in 2003, whereby in the same year he was involved in a near-death experience in his operational duties. This led Chris down a path of fire behaviour and firefighting tactics. Chris became an instructor, creating courses and delivering for London and the Fire Service College as part-time instructor. Chris continued until 2019, working for the college as an instructor while going back operational for a number of years until he moved on to Northamptonshire, going back to his roots, creating and delivering firefighting tactics and being on a regional BA team. Chris is still serving as a watch manager in the UK Fire and Rescue Service now, and in his current service he works in fire protection, as well as still delivering training to brand new firefighters every day. And what I love about the way Chris speaks about training and his delivery is that he has the really, really rare authenticity about understanding the why behind why we do the things we do. So in today's episode, we're going to be speaking about a whole array of things. It might look like a bit of a long one, but this may very well be my favorite ever episode. I don't know. It was just such a fun, interesting, deep, challenging, and at times, for the both of us, quite an emotional conversation. So a few things to look out for in today's episode. We're going to speak about a few incidents. We're going to speak about Smithfield Market. We're going to speak about Gillinder Street, Bethnal Green. We're going to talk about ownership and recruitment and giving people a sense of pride and belonging. Chris has a great analogy that he gives about creating a box for brand new recruits. Listening for that one. It's a great idea. I'm certainly going to steal it myself. We go into lots of examples around operational tactics. We talk about what is your priority versus tactics. We talk about dynamic risk assessments inside the fire compartments. We talk about water application. We talk about anti-ventilation, communication checks and the essentialness of them. Chris's own personal story from his near-death experience has lots of these moments within it that will demonstrate the cost of forgetting some of these fundamentals. We talk about the Bergen principle and how we wear our BA sets and how that kind of came about, and Chris's, again, experience leading to some of these changes. We speak about the real-life cost of getting your gloves wet. And then finally, we talk about DSUs and entrap procedures and how that saved Chris's life. So there is so much to take away from today's episode. Honestly, I think you're going to love it. Chris very kindly made the journey to come and record this at my home. So there's no video for this one. So on our YouTube page, you won't see any video clips from this one. But it does make for a richer, more authentic back and forth between myself and Chris. So there's a lot of fun in this one. There's a lot of colourful language from the both of us. And again, take that in the way that it's intended. There's a lot of passion in this one. There's a lot of reflection. There's a lot of, could I have done something different? What would have happened if things weren't the way they were? And Chris makes some very good points around the way we speak about debriefs and the fact that it's not inherently for us to judge what we'd have done, because of course, looking back over time, we all become experts. We become those Monday experts talking about the game from the weekend and how we'd have done it so much better. It's not for us to judge, because if we'd have been in that person's shoes with the same training, the same level of experience, most likely we'd have made the very same decisions. And absolute certainty is only available to us in hindsight. So I hope you enjoy this one. It certainly is going to linger long in my memory, and I would really love to have Chris back on. This is a 3-hour episode, but funnily enough, I felt like we could have spoke for another 2.5. So hopefully it's all useful. Take what applies to you and leave the rest. And just finally, a big thanks for Chris for coming on and being so honest, open, authentic, and honestly vulnerable in the way that he communicates with such playfulness and passion for the profession of firefighting. So without further ado, it's my absolute pleasure to introduce you, Chris Westfield, and I'll see you on the other side.
get nervous because I don't like any of my voice being recorded, because
No
then
one
they
does.
can be used as evidence.
Think about how I feel. Like, I have to listen back to myself, and I always go.
Dear. I've gone through a lot of your podcasts, because when I tend to do the story for Telstar House, I always, because I've been an instructor for a long time, I use Telstar House as a learning point. It captures people.
The best podcasts I love are where there's no start.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is
Just flows.
you've just walked into the room and there's already a conversation taking place.
Yeah.
Because I'll not go, Chris, welcome to the podcast, because then people turn wooden and you go, oh, thanks, Pete. Thanks. No one, everyone gets that you're grateful for being here. No one cares.
Oh no, do it.
No,
because what I'll do is I won't go wooden. I'll just take the mic.
I'm doing you a favour. Yeah.
I'll just know when it started.
But that bit is so authentic.
Yeah.
You know, because you're right. We get into this corporate speak of people talking in a way that they just don't talk.
No.
You know what I mean?
No.
Just unzip that a bit more for me.
And then say that again.
Unzip
Unzip it. Oh,
yeah,
nice.
It's getting me excited. No.
I think you've got to remember as well. I've taught at the college. I've taught London. I've taught with my other service and my current service. I do part-time sort of training there, and I've done it for a long time. And I've done it with huge sort of different demographics. You know, particularly with the fire service college, because of the different services that they have from other countries. And
Did you ever step on landmines when you were there? Because with different services having different... It is ironic with the fire service that we have different value, morals and all this sort of stuff. We all do the same thing. Is there any big faux pas that you step on?
Yeah, I think London at the minute are going for a real... if you open a book and turn a page, they're in the process of turning pages. So I think when you're in that situation, as a human behaviour would be there... You remember the storming, norming, performing? Yeah, okay. So I think at the minute, because there've been so many sort of tortures on London, I think it's in a storming process at the minute. It's just...
Hasn't it been that way for ages, though? I always think it's too big to manage. I know you know Steve Dudney, and we've had him on a few times.
I don't know Steve Dudney. I may have met him a couple of times. I know him by face.
That's the thing, I suppose you get that with London sometimes. People are like, oh, I know a mate in London. You're like, there's 6,000 staff.
So that's how...
I've never fucking heard of them.
So that was it. Right, so any time you were doing a relief, right? So you've got, or a job, you've got a 10 pumper or a 20 pumper, you'd turn up, right? And what would happen is you'd go down the welfare bus and where all the sandwiches and foods, and you'd see someone and you'd know them, but you could never remember the name. You'd go, are you still at... And you'd be like, and they'll go, North Ken. Yeah, North Ken, how are you? And they'd go, are you still at... Go, Kensington.
I don't do that.
Yeah.
I just say mate or buddy or brother. Because people know my name, not because I'm more or less important. I think because I've just chosen to do stuff in the public space. More people know you. This is the weird thing about podcasts as well. I speak about addictions, my erectile dysfunction. I talk about all that on the podcast. So people know a lot more about you than you know about them. But they feel like they know you. Because they do know you.
So you have to put it in perspective. But
I've got no idea who you are.
No. So what I'm talking about is when, particularly London, when if you've got a 10, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, if you have a 10 pump fire, there's something like 30 resources that turn up. Really? Yeah, because you've got all the support vehicles.
All the CSVs and the DACs and the rider station officers.
When you're doing a 20 pump fire, you've got that many resources there that you're not going to know everybody's names and stuff like that. The other services I've been in are a lot smaller. So, for example, when I was an incident commander with LFB, one of the first things you'd be looking at is an RVP. Where are all our resources going to go?
Yeah, because in London you can't park anywhere.
No, exactly.
So where am I going to put these 20
and you've got a huge amount of
engines?
vehicles. Whereas other services,
Park wherever you like.
Because you ain't getting anything. You ain't make pumps for, they laugh at you because that's a quarter of the service. And you're like, what, for the house fire? 2, and that's all you're having. And it was that, that sort of changeover was... Not a lot of people get it, coming from a big Met Brigade, going into other services. Do
you think London over-respond? Is there a political thing about we need to get this managed very quickly and get business back to... But also,
I can't ever say, I tell you what, because I am union and I am very for
oh God, I don't want less fire engines.
Yeah, no, of course. Over-respond. I would suggest that other services under-respond, but that's
probably more accurate.
That's because of, they haven't got the funding and the resources, and also when you're doing like a risk-based program, you're having to sort of look at things and justify those.
Isn't it also like a really difficult metric of success, I always think, with what we do? Because I've never been to a fire that's still burning now. So what I mean by that is you can be a really bad firefighter and eventually it's going to go out anyway at some point in time. So the idea of getting it dealt with quickly, this is one of my big frustrations. I know you instruct on BA and stuff, but like the glacial pace that we seem to search rooms and orchestrate our... It's a great saying I remember on a podcast. It's like, no one ever got sacked for hiring Goldman Sachs. And what I mean by that is, it's easy to just put things in that are approved and are safe. Like, no one got sacked for putting extra safety measures in place.
Yeah.
If you came up with a new way to move your arm because it avoids the spike on the wall, or you found evidence of booby traps at illicit drugs factories and you came up with a new search procedure to do it, you haven't going to get told off for that. But if everyone starts doing it, how much longer is this thing going to take? And I feel like we've gotten so slow in it. We've gotten so risk averse in the way that we go about our BA procedures now. And like that's when we look at the American models and we go, oh God, they're so gung-ho, all over the shop, dangerous, stupid, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, theirs is a whole different dynamics. And their speed of attack is impressive. For me personally, I always think to myself how quickly they get in there and get it done, and their ventilation tactics and stuff like this.
Oh, right.
We're so slow.
Right, you're getting me excited, Pete, right? Because...
I thought you were just pleased to see me.
Right, so let's start. Firstly, I thought I'm coming here just to talk about Telstar House. And
we'll get on to that.
I thought the subject was specifically Telstar House.
Oh, we're going to talk about
do you know what? I've gone
shit
through my head because I've never done talks and podcasts before, and I'm thinking... what am I going to talk? And then you're talking about this was really good because this is like a passionate thing for myself. And
you'll have seen more. That's what I mean. Because like I never saw as much of it till I started going around looking at other services, doing the podcast, assessing, blah blah blah. And you go, oh, this is just our version of how we do it.
Yeah,
this isn't actually firefighting.
Right. So 2 points there of so you're sort of talking about risk averse. What I find interesting with BA is. I think at the minute we're at a point where we're stagnating with...
For how many decades now?
For going forward. Well, I mean, I'm still...
Dan Stevens spoke about this.
I'm still seeing, lectures from... we're still doing the same things from Smithfield Market. Okay, so Smithfield Market, 1958, I think it was. That's where all your... BA procedures, your safe movement all came in, right?
I'm so glad you've said that because I can never remember. I'm going to write that down. Smithfield Market.
Smithfield Market, yeah.
Because I always say to people like direct left, direct right, and I can never remember what job it came from.
That was because that was a Cork. So it was Smithfield Market. That was London, and it was a basement that was cork lined, and they stored all the meats underneath there. So all the oils of the meat soaked into the cork. And they had a fire underneath it. I think you could still see the video of where Smithfield Market, the towers and that all collapsed.
I'm going to find a link to it, so I'll take notes during this because I'll get links for people.
And they had the fire, and it was sort of what I remember. You had to go 1958, maybe.
Sorry, I'll look around that time.
I'm sure someone might comment on there to correct.
Fuck them, don't worry about it.
and that's where there's a lot of things. So we talk about. Reducing the cylinders, do not, if you adjust the cylinder and reduce it down, then you're going to lower it won't have an effect on the breathing rate to extent. Okay, so that's sort of stemming from there.
Okay,
you've got the
why help people understand. Why did people feather it before? They would turn it half down or whatever.
I think what. Historically, that could happen with the old sets of times gone by before I even joined the service. Right?
Well, the reason they changed the right angle to the upright is because they said about it getting closed itself, shimmying along walls and whatever. And search procedures, they're like, might close because that's why you have the pull down ratchet that we have on it now.
Yeah.
I've never heard of it closing itself. I wasn't in 1960.
So I know that a number of years ago now there was issues that the ratchet on the BA cylinders they have worn down. So actually, where you have to pull them to bring them back, they can wear.
The notches, because it's just a rubber, it's a plastic composite, isn't it? Yeah.
So, bouncing. We're bouncing. We're bouncing.
Smithfield, this is ADHD.
Smithfield Market, doing the bit. I've worked for other services that have got ultra high pressure. Cobra, and looking at those systems is absolutely amazing. And the tactics that this particular service uses, where you've got on-call services that use phase 3, so they use phase 3 fans, and they'll incorporate them together. So you've got ultra high pressure, you've got phase 3, you've got your hose reels, and you've got your 45s. And just watching that work, right, where you can use. So you look at it. I think London's procedure may have changed because it's been a number of years. But if you've got a basement job, you've got a 45 hose reel jet with a 45 backup, and it's really, really resource intensive. Not only is it resource intensive, but it's the other aspect of contamination for yourselves. It's turnaround of resources. Because you think about it, if you're in all that heat and smoke, that's all getting into your system. And there's a number of people I've known now.
What are you saying? Because it's longer to deploy 45, you mean?
So it's resource intensive.
More arduous.
So it's arduous. So you're needing more people, okay? You're exposed to all the contaminants within there on you. Yeah. You're hot and sweaty.
Oh, sorry, just simply by deploying versus Cobra.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So
Cobra think they've failed, in their education piece.
So I've
because people think Cobra is a pressure washer on the back of a truck some places.
And it's a shame, and I'll tell you why. Tell you why. So
I'm going to bring you back. Don't worry.
If you look at the, we've got, why I know Smithfield Market, and you've got Gillinder Street, and you've got Bethnal Green, and these are case studies, and case studies are really, really important, and we don't use them in training as much as we should do, because it hits home and it encompasses what we're doing and why we're doing it.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Gore-Tex Professional Fabrics. Now, we all know the working environment of a firefighter is filled with challenges. We face serious risks on the job, such as heat exhaustion, burns, physical and mental stress, and we frequently come into contact with high levels of toxic chemicals. Now, I have been wearing Gore-Tex for nearly 2 decades on the front line, working in hostile environments, tackling challenging incidents from firefighting to water incidents, and in urban search and rescue environments. Gore-Tex have a well-earned reputation for protecting professionals in the fire and emergency services through their family of highly innovative, waterproof, breathable moisture barriers that exceeds global performance standards and are trusted worldwide. Gore-Tex, going further together. But that helps with the why. I always say, if you don't tell people the why, we just tell them the what and the how.
Yeah.
But then students, there's the eternal kids, why?
And we don't know why.
But if you don't know the why...
Yeah, and it's really important. It's important for people to say why. And I think we're in services now where people don't necessarily know the why. And also we're creating people that won't necessarily ask the why sometimes.
We do discourage the why. Some people don't care about the why, which bothers me the most.
It underpins the reason as to why you do it. That's what's important.
Yeah, but it's the old German analogy where we're only following orders. We're only following orders. But you don't know why you're doing it.
Great example is entrapment procedure. Yeah. And I'll go on to this one later on. So just radar it as entrap procedure, right? The amount of times I've heard people say, we'll deliver entrap procedure, but if it was me, I wouldn't do this. I would, I'll try and work where I would never get into that position. I would get out. I'll do this. I would do that.
Famous last words.
And I've used entrap procedure and it saved my life. And the amount of times that I've been there and people have said that they don't understand the purpose of it, and it doesn't, I wouldn't ever use it. I don't know anyone else that's used it.
Some training departments still don't train it now. Well, sorry, that's a lie. So they will do PowerPoints and one on it, and they'll do a classroom session. But the old arduous conditions, heat and exposure, and then where you cylinder all down, go outside on your last 50 bar, get into your entrap procedure, sit there, see how long you can make it last. They used to do that. Some places don't even do that anymore.
Yeah, and they should do. Because
I think they saw it as bee sting. Because the heat and exhaustion exposure was us making people march around a room, stepping over benches, carrying barrels. They don't like that bit anymore because they see that as unnecessary bees. So misinterpreted as unnecessary bullying.
So I joined the service when that had gone, with the buckets up and down the stairs, up and down.
You didn't
the stairs,
do that?
I didn't do that bit.
Okay.
I did for my BAIs at
really?
the Fire Service College in 2006, I think it was, or 2005. But I didn't do it as a recruit for London. Okay. Now, for me personally, and we're going to talk about this job.
Yes,
and
yeah.
it was,
We've got no time cap.
I'm from
Have
this.
you got a time cap?
No.
Okay.
From this job, it's a measurement. So I have been in situations since then where I've not got close to that, but I understand myself a lot more and know my limit. So if you don't know your limit or you've never experienced a limit, and I'm not saying it's right, I'm not saying it's wrong. What I'm saying is it's a rhetorical question. If an individual doesn't know what their limit is, how do they know when they're getting to it? And if they don't know how they're getting to it, then how are you giving them that exposure to understand where their point that they need to come out or they need to do to actually say enough is enough? You're not giving them a measurement. You know, we measure, everything's measured, isn't it? You know, within the service. If people are doing training, they'll measure it against NOG. If you're doing fire safety, you'll measure it against guidance.
But we don't let people fail safely anymore, which frustrates me, like pulling people out of places at 70 bar, and I'm like, run them down to 10. The door is right there. I want to see what they do when they panic.
And that's and that is important. So for me as well, I think what's really important, again, it's a measure between what are you doing it for? So it's not a bee sting if you're doing it for a purpose. If you're doing it because it makes you feel better, and you got that, you did get that.
Yeah, there are some people.
But if it's within the lesson plan, and there's an aim and an objective, and there's a reason for it, and there's control measures in place to do that, I don't understand what the problem is, because it's really, really important.
Because we do it in fitness all the time. Like I do it on testing weeks with clients and stuff. It's like, we're going to train to failure today, whatever that might, or I'm going to get you into your top 10% of your heart rate. So for some people that might take us 30 seconds. For some people it might take you an hour.
I've done it where we've had live fires in a previous service as an I was an instructor in not London, it was the one after. And you'd got these people in there and they were live, and they were hot. They were, you know, they are working really, really hard, and they still know it's a training environment. They're mucking about, you know. They're in the room and they've left the door open to the fire. They've got the casualty and they're just slowing and they're trying to do. And then that's where I'd stop and I'd just shout. And I'd be like, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? You're killing yourself. You're killing the casualty. Yeah. What are you doing? And the reason I'm doing that is to actually remove all the barriers and go straight down the point.
Yeah.
So the best example of that is COVID, isn't it? We look at the fire services and other services. It was like, well, we can't do this, we can't do that. COVID hit and we went, let's remove all these barriers. Let's help all these services. Major incident. We'll do everything. We'll drive ambulances. We'll drop medications off. We'll do this, that, and everything else. Yep. Right, okay. So when there's and I remember doing a case study years and years ago, and there was a British Transport Police officer who was part of the Northern Ireland Police originally, and he's joined BTP, and he told me about that we always get these, but when the shit hits the fan, that's when we know our clear goal. Yeah. And that's always when we work. We work better, interagency, and as people, when there's an emergency, when there's a situation occurs and done. Yeah. Boom. Right? So we look at this bit inside this fire compartment and they're mucking about, they're being slow, I'm really tired, and then you start going on, you're killing the casualty, why are you here, what are you doing it for, and you see them, you hear them, they pick that casualty up.
Because you have to create stress, it's a simulation.
Exactly, because that's what they'd feel inside the incident.
They're too comfortable, they're familiar with this environment.
And they've never ever been in a situation where they know.
And they know you're there. The instructor's going to, if shit goes really bad, the instructor's going to pull me out.
I'm getting excited now, I'm on the edge of the seat. So if you look at it, right, the role map used to be understand and know the boundaries of your equipment and you. Okay, that was part of your role map as a firefighter all the way up to watch manager. Was knowing your limitations and know the limitations of the kit. Okay, but
so ask that question.
We're in a situation now where we don't necessarily expose them to understanding what their limitations are, and it's too averse. So
I tried to bring it back in and called it PPE appreciation.
where you work them hard in their PPE to know how it feels to work in it.
Yeah.
But it just looks like I was told off for it not so long ago, actually.
So this is the bit and that's where I sort of have learnt is you have these good ideas, and a lot of the time you will, and I've got into trouble before, and you go, this would be a great idea because this is for this person. Mm-hmm. So I'm doing something for this individual because I'm reading this person, and I know that this would benefit this person right now. Yeah. So this is what I'm going to do. But sometimes it's not necessarily in the overall aims and objectives or the lesson plan, but you know that this person would really benefit from that right now. And as a great example of
that's the difference between teachers and instructors, though, isn't it?
Yeah. Expand.
So for me, my sister's a teacher, and she says all about a student-focused environment. Like, I've got lots of resources and tools in this school. We can go outside, we can go down the hall, we can go here, we can go there, whatever is relevant to the students. And it's a bit like, there's a place on the map we need to get to. How we get there is entirely up to me. I could take the M1, the M6, the M5. But some people go, if I'm instructing strong to a scheme of work, I must do X. And next after step 1 is step 2 is step 3. Do you know what I mean? And there's no like, oh no, well, they've got step 2 and step 3. We're going to go 5. Then actually we're going to go back to 3 and then 9 and then 7. And then I might just pop to 26 because I see there's some knowledge base here that we need to explore or something like that. That's you're like orchestrating a crowd. Do you know what I mean? But it's that fixed, it comes back to the why. Like some people are just the fixed on the what and the how. This is what I have to teach today, and this is how this is what I have to instruct today, and this is how I have to instruct it. But not the why. I want you to get an appreciation for fire behaviour. So how can I do that? We can go in the fire behaviour unit, we can do a YouTube video, we can get out some of these little toys and a candle and a cup and a thing. Do you know what I mean? Because it's about taking the person from where they are. This is another big thing. Take someone from where they are to where you want them to be. We don't go to where people are sometimes. Like you go into a room and you start at point 7, but everyone joins the fire and rescue service at a different point. Like we were talking about earlier, your upbringing and your character building and working in garages and stuff like that, you will have a mechanical mindedness, you will have, you're more of a kinesthetic learner, whereas some people have just come from their accountancy job that they've done for 20 years. So I need to join you where you are and then take you on the path to where I want you to be. And if we're so fixed around our delivery style, coming back to what you were saying, it limits our ability to take appropriate tangents when it suits the student.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Sorry, I dragged you off down my own rant.
I agree with you. I've lost what I was talking about, but that was a really relevant point.
Fire behaviour, you were talking about shouting at students.
Okay. So let's get back, because there's a really good point you said there.
And we're going to circle back to Smithfield in a minute.
And what you need to log there as well is about the objective and how we get there. That about your teacher experience.
The objective and how we get there.
Yeah, because that's really, really important. And I think that's what we're really, really missing on developing our firefighters. Yeah. So, and what you do is you create that induced stress.
Yep.
In a safe environment, and what you do is you see them pick this casualty up, you see them going across the floor, just ignoring everything else, dragging this casualty down the stairs and then out. And they are absolutely like two things. They have worked and they are absolutely knackered. But you see the level of achievement in their face and what they've done. Yeah. They've achieved, and this is where we miss a hit really with dumping casualties, leaving casualties into the rooms, or making objectives unachievable. Sometimes it's good once in a while, but making objectives unachievable, making not letting them put the fire out completely. These are all things that
training scars.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with you. Yeah, you're not giving them that sense of achievement, of completion.
They're so fixed on, well, I'm 5 minutes from my time to whistle. Let's just leave him here. And you're stood there as an instructor looking, going, you're 10 metres from the door.
Yeah.
There's one more compartment. And they're like, no. Well, when you ask them afterwards, they're like, oh, but I was 10 minutes. Yeah, and what does that mean, though? Means you've got another 70 bar.
But we've not, but that's what you were saying earlier, Pete. We've not pushed them the other way to then understand and really know their time to whistles, what they can achieve, where they can cut corners safely, what they can and what they can't do. So so we'll go back to this bit about...
Because I think there's a question there, and I'll ask it in a bit like initial acquisition of skills versus experienced firefighter, and how do we want to train each one.
Okay. So what we generally do now, as nationally, is we will... Revalidations are exactly the same as...
Safe to ride ones,
your team leader assessments, or it's exactly the same. Yeah. So you've got someone 15 years in, and time's not an issue, but I'll expand on it in a little while, where they're sticking to the wall, they're not coming off the wall, they're not assessing anything, they're just doing policy, policy, right?
Doing a dance.
And I think what's really important is initially, when people first join the service, it is very policy driven. So if you could imagine, if people are listening to this, if they can imagine 2 straight lines, right? So half a square. So a line up and then a line across to the right if they're facing on a piece of paper, right? Yeah. And what you've got is that first line is policy and the top line is objective. Okay. So what you do to start off with, you've never been in BA before, you've never done fires, you'll follow that, you'll not come off that policy line. It'll be very straight. Yeah. And then what you'll do is you'll come across that to meet your objective. Yeah. Very strict, very structured. Yeah. All right. Now, as we are exposed to jobs and incidences, we can create a curve. So we can come off that line of policy, we create a curve and we meet our objective quicker, but it's safe because we're incorporating policy, we're incorporating dynamic risk assessment, and we're incorporating experience.
Experiential knowledge,
so,
situational
let's
awareness.
Use all those three, and we know, and then we're curving it. So as an incident commander, I will turn up to an incident, and I'll get to a house fire. You know, I've been to a load of these, I'm reading it, I know the people, and what I'll do is I'll cut corners to achieve the objective quickly and safely. Exposing highly calculated manner to save savable life and property, right? So we do that. But I go to a hazmat incident, and I will follow that policy strict. I won't curve, I'll go straight and objective. But hazmat officer will curve it.
Or walk straight through.
Yeah.
And go there and go, what is it? Yeah. Excuse me, mate, have you got any XYZ? Right, okay. And they go, put their finger in it and go, no, it's fine.
Yeah. So we create, so hazmat officers will have a curve. Yeah. But a general day-to-day, day-to-day watch manager will follow.
Might be anthrax.
Policy.
Not going anywhere.
Follow policy, strict, and come across. Because we're not exposed to it enough. Yeah. To be able to do that curve. That's the importance of knowing the foundation.
But you know what's weird about that? Sorry, I'll let you get back on that flow in a second. Is someone said to me a little while ago, I think it was Ed Sullivan, Fire Service College hazmat guy, and he was like, so what's the hazmat job then? I said, well, unknown chemical, situated in a location or in a building. And he says, okay, what's the house fire then? So it's a fire, it's fire in a property or and he says, right, well, what is the fire? Right, it's a bunch of burning chemicals that you don't know what they are. Yeah. He says, so they're both a big black box. And I thought, we don't know what's burning. We don't know. I mean, obviously our rate of awareness around carcinogens and toxins and stuff like that is heightening. But he said, now we're having this decontamination conversation and there's a bleed over from hazmat into normal operational firefighting. He says, why do we not treat them both the same? And I'm not for 1 second encouraging everybody to stand back and just watch 2 people work like we do with hazmat jobs. But we shouldn't be as reticent as we are with hazmat, he believes. And again, but as you make the good argument, it's an experiential thing. We don't go to as many hazmat jobs and we see firefighting as our bread and butter. But I think we have negatives on both sides. Like hazmats take too long and maybe we put too much safety in place. Firefighting, we don't put as much safety in place and we pay the cost of contamination.
Do you think that's how it's rolled out? Tactical ventilation is an example. Yeah, so we've always...
Tactical ventilation has been one of the most disappointing failures of the UK Fire and Rescue Service.
So tactical ventilation, it was rolled out negatively. Hazmats, I think, have rolled out negatively in the sense of... I remember a hazmat officer saying, radiation, I love radiation. It's a It's a direct line. Okay, so you got your. He was saying about EPDs. London had these little red EPDs, and he said, "What a waste of time!" Because electronic. Sorry, EPD.
Some at the beginning of their career.
Electronic personal dosimeter. So do you remember the tube dosimeters?
No.
So we used to have years ago. This tube dosimeter, and you'd look in it. It'd
like a kaleidoscope.
Right, and it would go now.
Like a long distance.
So we were at Kensington Fire Station, right? Yeah. So Kensington Fire Station is right next to the Israeli embassy. It's the wall. The wall is the. They've got a DERV. I can see where this is going. They've got a DERV tank right at the back of the station, and so Kensington used to be a two-ply. This long time ago, and they had the ramps up, so you couldn't have a terrorist attack driving straight in. And they'd got the embassy police that were outside at the side of the gate. And you used to have to calibrate these, or just look at these dosimeters, personal dosimeters. And then what happened was they just kept going off. We had to go back. And I'm not saying it is. So there's nothing there. But they just kept going off the scale. And then we'd go back to recalibrate. And then it happened 3 or 4 times. And then what happened was we basically just made contact with the embassy. Not the station, but elsewhere.
Excuse me, mate.
Have you got anything that's affecting these dosimeters?
By any chance? And then, you've got a lot of radiation.
Yeah, and not long after that, they were all right again. So I'm not saying anything other than the observation.
Put the thing behind the lead barrier like I told you to.
Yeah.
Stop putting it in everyone's teapots and coffees, all right?
So we got you
can just see some uneducated soldier running round with the thing and he goes, "Boss, where do you want this stored?" And he's like, "Fucking put it back in the box."
Do you know what?
That's radiation.
And then there'll be some hazmat people out there and they'll go, "That is a hoo-ha." And do you know what? It could be that there was just an issue with the old kaleidoscope dosimeters. But it's just a really good story.
Well, everything gives off a murmur of radiation, doesn't it?
Of course they do.
Areas of the ground give off a variety of radiation.
So Lambeth, the station there, has got granite from... It's from
in the building construction?
Yeah, on the pillars inside the bay. If you look at the station,
and they give off
the original one, they're painted. And the reason why they're painted was they give off radiation.
Give off slow dose radiation.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, because it's the granite. So they've had to paint them, and you can see.
If we've got any Lambeth listeners going and putting a claim now.
So
that's why I can't get an erection. Yeah, that's maybe not it, but feel free to put the claim in. I don't know.
Free tablets for life. I've lost it now. Oh yeah. And I remember
the failure of TAC.
I remember this hazmat officer. We'll go back to that hazmat officer, and he was saying EPDs, direct line. Radiation has given this and that and everything else. It's chemotherapy. It's created this. It's created everything. And he was saying we're too scared of it. And there's so many amazing things that it's done and does do. And that's the different mindsets. So linking that to tactical ventilation and hazmat incidents is it's always rolled out as a very negative of the things that it could potentially do. And so we're very risk averse and scary. London haven't got any form of tactical ventilation at the minute. They're just bringing it in now. Yeah. I'm aware of that.
I was on my TAC Vent instructor's course a couple of years ago, a year or so ago, with the guy, I can't remember his name, but the irony is he's going to retire in like a year's time. So he got on his TAC Vent instructor's course to help embed it in London. There's going to be a team of them. I think there was recently an NFCC advert out for another. They wanted someone to come in with, and they had to have all the BAIs and their CFBTs and their TAC vents. I don't know if that was to support the embedding of it as well.
Yeah,
dissemination.
You think about it, it's a massive project.
It's going to take a year and a half, 2 years to teach all the service.
And then by the time you've done it, you've got to go back round again.
100%, yeah.
So, it's a massive sort of project to implement. And
I think radiation was an interesting one. There's a guy, Professor Green, which does a lot of hazmat instructing around the UK, and he said a great little one, and it's only one tiny example of radiation, but he said, well, think about the sun. He said, sun's giving off radiation all the time, yeah? When you go outside, you're getting radiation exposed to you by the sun. He said, if you don't come inside and you're not covered in sunshine, and he used it as an example of, alpha, beta, gamma radiation, and he was going through the stages of it and how worried we get about radiation. I'm not for 1 second saying we shouldn't worry about it at all, but there's levels of risk tolerance that we don't fully understand. And I put myself in that bucket. I'm saying this stuff like I know anything about it. But he was like, That's an example of you've been exposed to it, but you're not irradiated.
No.
You can't go and rub up against Chris and radiate him. You know, it's not, he says contamination doesn't work like that when you think of radiation. And he's got a great way. He always reminds me of, Dr. Brian Cox?
Yes.
So I forget who said it, but it was like, if you know a subject well enough, you should be able to explain it to a child.
Yeah.
And Brian Cox is one example. There's another really astrologist in America. I've heard him on a podcast a few times. Black guy, really great.
Yeah.
And the way he explains stuff, I'm like, he talks about the universe, and I'm like, I get it now.
Yeah.
The way you can explain
Funny
it.
enough, I was listening to the other day when he was talking about how the Earth is, I think something
Brian Cox.
The guy from America, and he was saying,
he's been on Joe Rogan a few times.
The trench, from the depth of to the height, so it's how far the sea is, like underneath to the top, something like 16 or 20 odd miles, something like that apart.
Can't even fathom that in your head,
and you went, but if you'd got some gigantic sort of galactic beast that rubbed their thumb across the Earth, it would be smoother than a cue ball. Because the cue ball is, because it's perspective of size, isn't it?
Perspective of size,
So even though
when we look at the sun and think there's craters all over it.
And if we look back, even if we look back onto the Earth, then you can see it looks smooth, can't it?
Yeah,
it doesn't have that
undulations to it.
So it's really interesting. And he was talking about how the sea tide doesn't go in and out. It's the sort of how the Earth moves, and it sort of brings it in and out. It's just really,
I heard a funny thing about a CEO's meeting, and it made me think about chief fire officers sometimes. When there's an external advisor giving him some advice, and he's told him it 10 times, and he's going, for God's sake, guys, I could explain this to a 6-year-old, and the CEO goes, quick, someone fetch me a 6-year-old. Johnson, get me a 6-year-old. And you're just like, yeah.
Just slightly, there was a bit about Richard Branson the other day. He was talking about profit, and I can't even remember the terminology of the profit. And it was, when you've got your
profit and loss spreadsheets.
Yeah, but it's not that. It's when you've got all the money, you've got all your profit, but you've not all your money come in without paying your wages and everything, and then you've got all your pure profit after. I can't remember what the terminology was, but Richard. You remember the accountant coming in and getting him to one side and said, you don't know the difference between the two, do you? Even though he's a billionaire.
Yeah.
He went, no, I don't. No. And that's when this person had
gone That's down. The entrepreneurial mindset that Richard Branson has. And that's why a lot of people, when they get to the size of a certain organisation, they have to appoint a CEO because they don't understand. And I don't understand larger business models and how all of that works. Because you're in that, I'm in control of everything, entrepreneur, sole trader mindset. Of any cash that comes in is my cash, and I decide to spend it where I want, and then you start getting into assets and liquidity.
Isn't there a great link to that, Pete? And I'll bring it in.
In other news, this episode is brought to you in partnership with MSA Safety. Today we have them to thank for the improved firefighter safety through connectivity in their brand new connected firefighter system. At the centre of the connected firefighter platform is the MSA M1 SCBA with telemetry. You can view battery life, air pressure, and estimated time remaining either independently on the M1 itself or from the Luna connected device screen. Also, still with the air status, alarm information, search status, and all of this provided to the incident command for confident decision making during the scene. That integrates straight in with the Luna system, which is a wireless all-in-one device creating an independent search and rescue network, providing edge detection, enhanced personal thermal imaging, while simplifying post-scene reporting and data retention. One of the key parts of the Luna is their FAST system, the Firefighting Assisting Search Technology. This combines directional and distance information with thermal imaging to help find separated teammates and decrease response time. It actually connects you to the other crews in the vicinity for a unified search during the time of mutual aid by instantly notifying the network of Luna devices when there is a downed crew member, allowing for a prompt search and rescue. All of this then plugs into the FireGrid system for cloud-based connectivity, real-time information, and data-driven decisions for the incident commander. It enables you to see the exact location of your firefighters on the scene. And it doesn't require you to be sat on the station. The MSA Hub then provides a wireless gateway straight to the cloud, enabling wireless on-scene data for local and remote incident command for additional eyes on the scene. MSA are truly taking massive strides in the future of improved firefighter safety through connectivity. MSA is dedicated to increasing safety in the fire service through technological advancements. Various feature enhancements, new products, partnerships, and integrations will provide additional capabilities readily accessible by products, software, and services, in the brand new MSA connected firefighter platform. Now back to the show.
So Richard Branson's dyslexic, okay?
Yeah.
So, but very a practical mindset, knows the goal to get to, but admin paperwork, not the greatest, all right? I remember when it was first initially called the DDA, Disability Discrimination Act, and that when that rolled into the service, that was delayed quite a long time. And then they found out that a large proportion of the fire service, particularly London, because that was the only experience I could have at the time, was dyslexic.
Yeah.
You know, and it was a job that had a huge amount of people that were dyslexic in it because
the neurodiversity in the fire service is massive.
Okay,
that's why we get attracted to it.
So let's bring it back then. Yeah, as an instructor, we're talking about it earlier. You've got because I have dyslexia as well, and so I see I have dyslexia and I have ADHD as well. It's just the services don't know, but it's something that you manage yourself, don't you? But what it does do is...
I've not declared it to my service because I've not bothered getting a formal diagnosis.
No, exactly, and that's the same thing. You manage it.
It won't make any difference.
No, you manage it.
And I don't want to...
It took me a long time to realise it. And it was a great... And I tell you where it came from. Oh, right, I'm deviating a little bit, but I'll come back to this.
Tangents are good.
Yeah, they are. So, for years, I've been sort of told that, you've got ADHD or you've got something with you. And there was I was in my previous service, I was an instructor, and there was this on-call recruit for their breathing apparatus. And very practical-minded, really, really good. But every now and then, if he did wrong, he'd proper beat himself. It was like, that's it, I'm the worst of the worst. He would speak for the group, and if there wasn't things that were right, he would raise it. And sometimes he didn't understand boundaries.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what was happening was with other instructors was they were observing his personality, okay, and not necessarily measuring on his achievements, but looking at his personality. And that's where I'd had discussions with people and go, look, let's remove his personality. Let's look at his abilities.
That's what about me, are you?
Let's look at his abilities, right? A young lad he was, so it wasn't you. Yeah. So, and practically really well, assessments with support really, really well. And he was doing everything he needed to do. Rubbed management up the wrong way with how he was and everything else. Anyway, I'll come to the story. So I'm there observing, and there was a little bit in him that I thought, do you know what, it reminded me of me.
Yeah.
And he wasn't aware, but there was a lot of support behind the scenes. I was with him. And he come up to me and he went, sir? I went, yeah. He said, we're similar, aren't we? And I went, yeah. He went, can I ask you a personal question? And I'm there and I'm in my fire kit. I'm observing what's going on. He went, and I went, yeah, go on. He went, have you got ADHD? And I looked and I went, have you? And he got this gurning grin. He went, yep. And then walked off. And I went, you bastard. Right. So I went home and then I went, Mum, I said, everyone's thinking I've got ADHD. And she said, yeah. I was going to get you tested as a kid, but I didn't want you high on, sort of doused out on drugs, so I never did. So I thought, oh, thanks, Mum. And then I found out later on I have. But
that's how I first started taking Adderall.
Really?
Because someone told me it'd be useful. And this is self-diagnosing and trying to find a solution to your own stuff. And then I ended up just getting hooked on Adderall and speed and everything else. Because it does kind of help. But it's not sustainable. Because it takes you down a dark hole with it. You were talking about, there's several places I want to take you back to.
No. Got it. I've called it back. So this is the problem, right? So you have, like you were talking about earlier, you have great ideas.
Yes.
Because normally with sort of ADHD, dyslexia, we have really, really good interpersonal skills, okay? So we can, I'm not blowing trumpets, but good at reading people or reading the situation sometimes of how people are, what they're, what am I telling them? Are they listening? Are they not interested?
That's because you're hyper-focused.
Yeah. And
you pick up on small body languages that people with less hyper-focus won't pick up on, and it makes you hypersensitive. That's why I was really good security on the doors and things like that, is because I'd pick things up 40 seconds before they're about to happen.
Situational awareness. Yeah, you read the situation.
Yeah, you go,
I know where this is potentially going.
My wife's got it, but she's from a different... She was in a relationship with domestic violence for 17 years.
Okay.
And she's hyper-aware of human behaviours.
Yeah.
But that came from not that mine came from a good place, but it's like the scars you pick up.
Yes.
And she picked that up from reading when something's going to go bad and how to get out of the situation. But sorry.
So two things there. One,
yeah,
you're learning from experience, and it helps you measure things. Okay. So that brings back to if we give people an extreme and control measures and support, they'll be able to read situations and be able to get themselves out of it. So that's the importance of stuff. The second point I wanted to make was this is the limitation of what we have with training and problems that are created. We read this individual and we go, do you know what I'm going to do to this person now is going to help them to achieve what they need to achieve. And that'll be, for example, I've seen it and I've done it myself. People will come up the stairs, they're not doing the safe movement. Tap the helmet. Why have you done that? Because I'm highlighting to you that there could be a low-level beam, there could be cables, there could be something. And all I'm doing is giving you that little click now to understand that your safe movement is not safe.
Yes.
And I'm just making you aware of that. Little situations like that, whereby for that person, that potentially worked.
Yep.
And you
may get the right stimulus.
Yeah. You may get people that get agitated with it. But it's what are you doing it for? And we do not look at, when we're looking at when people do that, so if I've done that, nobody looks at it and go, okay, you did that, the other person got annoyed, but what was your intention?
Yes.
Is your intention to help them to save their own life, or was it that you're just being an arse? Yeah? And we don't measure that. And this is the problem, but this is a problem and a benefit, and this is why we need diversity in training and all sorts. So, long years ago, EDIP, wasn't it? Explain, demonstrate, imitate, practice. Yeah. We look at having, if we're doing lectures, we'll have parts of what we're talking about there so that have the texture and dexterity to be able to touch it. We will have policies so that they can read it. We'll have the PowerPoint. We'll talk. We'll use case studies. We use everything to encompass. So I won't pick up a lot on heavy text, but some people will. I'll pick more on practically doing it, and I'll pick up more on going wrong. So I make mistakes. I learn from the mistakes. People say negative learning is not a good thing. I understand that, but for me personally, that if I'm exposed to making a mistake, I get it right. That's why it's really important in training, and that's why when I am observing in training, I don't stop people. I want them to make a mistake because it's really important. Everyone can get out of a room,
problem solving,
but if you go wrong, how do you deal with it? And that's what's important for me. It's about correcting the mistake and getting out of it, knowing you've made a mistake. Keeping you cool, and then controlling and getting out of it.
I remember this with guidelines in my recruitment where I got a blade out and very nearly cut a guideline, and the instructor stopped me because they were like, which was great of them, because they were like, solve the problem, put your knife away, solve the problem. Do you know what I mean? Whereas other people, I'm sure some other people would have gone about things differently because we were like 40 bar by then.
Yeah.
And he was like, just let them keep going. Solve it.
Yeah.
Find your way out.
We used to do a 2 weeks guideline, because London got a HSE from Gill Industry.
Yeah.
And, there was a direct assessment from guidelines itself. And I would allow people to go the wrong direction on purpose because it's really important for them to be able to get themselves out of that situation. And funny enough...
This is Park Royal basement, is that what we do there?
No, this was Southwark. So this is when we had Southwark. And had the old Firehouse. Yeah. So this wasn't Babcock. This was when London had their own training.
Oh yeah, sorry.
As an instructor.
Yeah.
So a long time ago.
Do you think that's gotten better or worse now they've switched to Babcock? Ooh, provocative question. Ignore it if you want to.
I don't think they have the. When you give it to somebody else, then you lose your own skill set. You don't necessarily have the flexibility to adapt the training to the needs of that time. There's a lot of why you can't do it instead of why you should do it, and I think cost becomes a bit of an issue as well. So there's things I'm aware of.
I'm training someone else's staff. So I feel like I was not as invested in if they do
when I was in training, right, and I did in London, I did I think I think it was something like a 4-week training for trainers course.
Okay.
And the training for, and then even the incident command course. When I did the incident command course, it was really in depth. They did loads and loads of tabletops. They had trains, like model trains crashed. They had. They used to get the housing from housing estates, and then they'd get the houses, the models, and they'd create all these, and the tabletops and the intensity, and then go to the fire service college and have the live incidents, and all that. And there was a real big psychological bit as well, talking about storming, norming, performing, all the management, the psychology of leadership. I think at that time, London, if they were able to if they were able
train
to
services,
do it as a business, they would have earned a lot of money, because the LMDT, the Leadership Management Development Team, the people that were in there were absolutely phenomenal. The firefighter development, so there was 55 BA instructors, 55 firefighter development instructors. Then you'd got your FRU, then you'd got your leadership management team, and they had specialist subjects, and the high turnover that London had at the time, because it was a large portion of people retiring. They had 16 people on each course, per course, and it was absolutely rammed. And not only did they, I think it was a 16-week course, and then on top of that, they did 2 weeks at the Fire Service College, real fire training. So they did BA, so they broke it down into 2 areas. They did BA, 3 weeks of BA, right? Yeah. No fires, BA. Wow. And then they did 2 weeks of firefighting, incorporating BA, ladders, and firefighting. So you had your fire science flashover backdraft, and then they would run it as incidents. So we'd be at port cabins, and then the mop bells would go down, and then the appliances would go out, and they'd be pitching ladders, and they'd be putting, they've got live fires, casualties, and it was all different incidences.
Wow.
So looking at that, of what I saw and observed,
but they're going through the same thing now with less reach, because I think London are running 24 courses this year, so they've got one starting every 2 weeks.
Oh, I know they're in
new recruits.
They're requiring
12 to 16 people per course, and just with less training resource and less I don't know how long their courses are now. I think they're 12 weeks. Might be less.
You had we used to have the go at Paddington. So Paddington had the basement with loads of rooms in it. It was great. I think they still use it. So we'd send people there for a couple of days. You would have had the basement in Southwark, but the basement had loads of different routes in there and tunnels in there, and loved it, rooms in there. And so not only did they have that, then we had the firehouse, which didn't work as a firehouse, but you still used it for guidelines and stuff. And floodings in the basement, so you could flood the basement and you'd have that in there. And so they were doing guidelines in basements, they were doing it in rooms, they were doing it in all sorts, like sub-basements and tunnels and everything.
Do you think that London also, well actually all services in general, if we go back then, the firefighting role map, we did less things and did them better. Now that we've brought in rope, water, bariatrics, animal rescue, everything else, hazmats, there's more in the firefighting role now, and training is less.
So that was interesting for when I moved services. Okay. So London have dedicated fire rescue units.
I was going to say the base level firefighter version of London do.
Yes. So they your working at height was hook your leg in a 135 and lean back, and that was it. Yeah. Then you didn't have your level 2 working at height or your level 1 working at height. That was all FRU. So the fire rescue units, that would be working at height, water. But I remember, bearing in mind this was a long time ago now, so this is years ago, I remember there was a bit of a concern for the fire rescue units, because they were having to do all this stuff, which was incorporated with USAR.
Maintenance of competence for them.
Yeah, exactly, for BA. And they were looking at wanting to, because they had, at the time, you had EDBA, extended duration breathing apparatus, which was twin cylinder, and that was on the fire rescue units only. So you had twin cylinder EDBA, working at height, working water. You had all this type of stuff, USAR as well. And so they just had a huge amount of work. And also it was coming to the point where they had the dedicated cutters for road traffic collisions as well. So they were doing the heavy rescue. So when a normal appliance turned up, generally the mindset was, well, we'll just make the scene safe and the FRU would come in. Whereas what I would do was I would get my lot, because I was too appliant, so I'd make sure that there were everything scene safety, and then work on it. And then when FRU turned up,
they can assist.
Yes, they would support our staff, because I wanted them to get involved as well, and I'd use FRU for sort of just allowing them to develop my crew. So moving to other services and then going, have you got working at height? Yeah, well, yeah, I can go up at 135. No. You got all this line rescue. Nope, none of that. Even down to the FRU stuff with the heavy rescue was not stuff that I was aware of. So that was a real big shock for me. Was in two areas, was that, and also when you're delivering training. In London, you just delivered training. You may have helped develop packages, but that was it. When I moved service, I was having effects on policy. I mean, I did regional work for entry control. And so that had effects on 4 or 5 services as a region. I was not exposed to that before. Great, absolutely loved it. But as a watch manager, I was making policy changes, and I wasn't used to that level. You didn't have that. So for me in London, it was a very nanny sort of state, and then a lot of micromanaging control. And then you come to other services, they haven't got it. You can't have that. And it's basically everyone is there to.
So the pro and con of both, I suppose, is, and I have this with London a lot, is the privilege of the size of the thing.
I don't think we don't appreciate when being in London. I didn't appreciate how good London is in the sense of size, stations, resources,
opportunities.
Yeah, opportunities, definitely. I come to other services. I was put in charge of a on-call station, and there's only 3 of us. And certain brigades will ride 3 to a number of different incidences.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
And having 4 people on an appliance and having to wait 15 minutes for another 4 to turn up, or turning up to I remember a cylinder job, and we turned up, and then the next appliance that turned up was on call, and then I'm waiting ages for the next appliances. And I've got the guy grabbing the hose, the ground monitor, trying to run into his garage to put the garage out while there's acetylene cylinders in there next to a load of houses that I'm trying to evacuate with only 8 of us, trying to deal with that individual, putting the fire out. And then I
think that's another secret, because the first few years of my career, so I did 10 years at an on-call station as well as whole time, but I started doing on-call retained. And it was a very rural area where I first worked, and you get... Again, you don't realise it because all you know is what you know, but you are on your own for 10, 15 minutes, and then you're only getting one more truck, and even then it's like, so when someone says, "Oh, I've got 10 trucks," what do you want me to put out? The airport? Do you know what I mean? It's like...
And I'd never worked with on-call before, and then I came into other services.
They're a great example of neurodiversity, aren't they? Because all of the knowledge they bring from their external working environments, and they go, that they don't suffer from the same conditioning, limitations, and sometimes command and control structures, where someone who owns a multi-million-pound construction company and just does 45 hours on the side on call, he or she will come in and go, "Chris, I've got one of these. Why don't we just do X?" And
you're like, what?
"Oh, that's great."
Really interesting. We do not appreciate on-call as much as we should do in a number of aspects.
I think it's 50 or 60% of the service.
Yeah. So
in what UK?
When I joined the training for this other service, there's a heavy reliance on call. Okay. So even down to the training. So think about it, right? Whole time.
Yeah.
We go training. We get our leave as soon as we start. We build up leave as soon as we start. Okay. And then, so we're working, we get our leave, we do everything. On call have to use their leave to be able to do the BA and the firefighter development side, right?
Yep.
So, and we don't appreciate that. And this is the first part. And it was, so I used to get I used to get welfare involved a lot with them when I was the lead for the BA courses, and I would be very empathetic, and I would listen to them. I value them, but I would give them a lot of support, and I would encourage support, because they may be a carer, they may have jobs, all sorts, so they're working all the time, and then what happens is their time that they take off, they're now doing a course. So what day do they have in that 12 months? They have no leave in that 12 months. So there's a lot of stress. Yeah. They're now doing this course. And if they fail the course or they came off the course, what I tried to do was get it incorporated that welfare would automatically contact them. Because if they failed a course, that's going to be a real hit on them going, I'm not good enough. 2, I haven't got any other leave available to do it again. And 3, I've just invested all that time and I'm useless. So it's a real psychological
My wife and my boss gave me this one as a favour. Do you know what I mean? And now I'm going to have to do it again.
Yeah. And the other part of that is there's no time off. No time off. So, constantly thinking about money, constantly thinking about doing my work, constantly thinking about family, personal, all those stuff. And it is just... it's running 100 metres with 10 kilograms on their back constantly, and just understanding that allows how it adapts your training to them as well.
Because with the whole time, we always thought, the recruitment's getting more and more of a challenge every year, but it used to be like, thousands of people want this job, Chris. Yeah. You show up and you're like, right, you're welcome. Congratulations, you made it. In front of me, now listen, shut up, listen, I'm in charge, blah blah blah, and your work, it's a privilege for you to be here. Whereas if I see that approach given to on call, where you've got a 38-year-old man, he manages his own business or whatever, and he's come in, and he's going, hey, what are you talking to me like a twat for? What are you talking to me like that for? And they're so close to just hitting that fuck it button. And they're like, what? I'm not being talked to like a dick.
Exactly.
I'm a smart, I'm an intelligent human being.
Yeah.
Don't talk to me like a moron. I want to do this because it feels good. I used to know a firefighter, and this is a good thing to do for my community. Yeah. I appreciate the fire station. I earn a good wage. I'm going to come and do this. And I am genuinely interested, and I will work hard. But don't talk to me like a moron, because I'm not a moron.
No.
And actually, doing you a bit of a favour for being here, it's much easier for me to just not be here and go to work and everything like that. And that's where we don't treat people... I always say, treat people fairly, but don't treat them the same. Don't treat everybody the same, because I'm not the same as Chris. No, I don't want to be treated the same as Chris.
You've just got to give them the same opportunities.
Yes,
to be
100%.
So if you look at... So that's one aspect we don't appreciate on-call for. Another aspect of on-call we don't appreciate is... let's look at Blainer. Okay, so... We tend to look at Blainer as the introduction of firefighter phenomenons and understanding flashover, backdraft and fire gas ignition, okay? But the other aspect we don't necessarily focus on is the effect on the community and the community pressures. So think about it, right? They've turned up, and this is what I used to say to on-call people. I turned up, I go to a station, I'm in charge, don't live in the area. I make decisions, achieve objectives, walk away, done. I have no link. There's a separation.
Yep.
On call, make a decision. You save a business, but you lose another business. Yep. That business then has a massive effect, and has an effect on these people.
The socioeconomic effect.
You may know that person that's lost that business. You may know the person that knows that person that loses that business. Yep. They may want to find a blame for that individual.
The receptionist kid goes to school with your kid.
They blame you because you didn't put the fire out quick enough. Yeah. They don't understand policies and procedures and safety and control measures. So whereas the risk that they would put themselves at as human behaviour would be always greater when it's a personal responsibility. So they will always put themselves at a greater risk than you as the fire service. So then, you're slowing down, so it's your fault. If somebody's died, you may know them, you may be a part of them. You have a greater exposure or risk of a family member, you being, as an RTC, I remember my old boss when he retired, he worked for Highways Agency, and he went to an incident, and it was his son, and I know of a person, a friend of mine in another service, got attended to an RTC, and it was his daughter, and so they have those exposures, whereas I don't, and I'm grateful that I don't have that. But what it does do is it gives me a better understanding for them that they may be pressured more into pushing themselves or putting themselves at risk more than others. So being able to understand that and trying to incorporate training and giving empathy and understanding, because there's always this, I've observed a difference, and I remember management saying, do we treat on call differently to whole time? And I remember having an officer, a high ranking officer, come in, because we were short staffed, to do entry control for on-call training, right? To do this done, or it'd have closed.
I remember how to do it.
So came down. I was the lead. I asked them to come down, or the course.
What's all this telemetry?
Course would be cancelled. Yeah. So they then came down to achieve it, and I remember looking at them going, the question was asked: do we treat on-call differently? This person was the one that asked me that question.
Yeah.
Okay. So whole time got 2 days training in the week to deliver the training. On call got 1 day at a weekend to do it. So I said, are on call treated differently? And I went, it's not from this level, it's management. Management treat them differently. They're believing that the training that they get is they're as important to the community as whole time. But they don't get everything the same.
That's just virtue signalling. They write that on a document or put it on a wall.
So a couple of things. One, in this particular service, I'm having a bit of a rant now, was whole time got paid an hour and a half overtime, time and a half.
Yeah.
Okay, so they've done I get called up, I can take a day off and then come back in on that day off and get time and a half. On call, got hourly rate.
Flat rate.
And the reason why they got an hourly rate was they haven't done 40 hours overtime actually at station. But they've given 100 hours. They've given 100 hours of availability. And on top of that 100 hours, they then book themselves on. They say, well, you can do your station, your appliance, your station, and you can keep that on the run, and that's it. And so you're not getting overtime for that. If you're booking available, you can book that. But that's not my hours that I've given. This is above my hours. So then if that one was closed and they went somewhere, they'd only get an hour overtime. No, that's wrong, because I could be sat at a station for 5 hours not getting a shout, doing nothing.
Yeah.
What is the difference?
Yeah.
I'm available already.
Yeah.
But we're not treating them the same.
No.
We have an expectation that a watch manager or a crew manager at an on-call station should do the same as a watch manager a crew manager at a whole-time station. They haven't got the hours to do it. The capacity is just
not only
the
that.
Expectation.
So, like the on-call station that I started at had 21 firefighters, 3 crew managers, 1 watch manager. That's 1 watch manager managing 21 or 20, one including themselves.
Yeah.
Relationships.
Yes.
Yeah. You got a watch manager on station managing 9.
Yeah,
and they're only doing it 2-2-4.
Yeah.
Bit here, bit there. Not every day, not weird, difficult 3 a.m. conversations where you've just come back from your kids screaming all night and all this sort of stuff. And I'm like, totally different. I think the emotional intelligence an on-call watch manager develops, and the balancing act of culture on an on-call station is a masterclass, if done well, because that is a different job. Yeah. It's a harder job, I think.
And I tell you another thing with on-call as well that I appreciate was you go to an incident, right, and you see something horrible, and the mess table is a counselling session, all right?
Pressure release.
And it might be that you just have banter and give each other abuse or whatever, but it's a way of you just offloading and just an experience that everyone's together. I remember this one particular station with 2 people that had recently just joined, and they had a real atrocious RTC that they had to get the bodies out. It wasn't pretty at all, and they had to get them out. And they got back to the station, did the paperwork, went home. And you think, they might be able to cope with that. And that's the thing. Whereas the brain is it's a muscle, isn't it? Right? Okay. 100%. So as we get older, we get, there's more scars within the muscle, we become stiffer, and
less neuroplasticity.
The brain is exactly the same, yeah? Mm. So we'd be able to absorb a load early on, but then what happens is it gets worse and worse and worse and worse as we get older.
Kids are very resilient.
So, yes, they are.
Adults less so at times.
Yeah, exactly. And it's that bit of building, it's all that bit of just filling it with your brain and those images and those smells and the sounds and everything else. And it gets to the point that it could become too much as they're older. And it's that bit of just sitting there, like just at home with your partner or whoever, knowing that you've just pulled 3 people out of a car. Yeah. You can't talk to your partner about it. No. Do you know what I mean? And they've not had that. They don't have the opportunity.
It's like training from 5th to 1st gear.
Yeah.
The jarring, gear wrenching.
Yeah.
I've got to change gears. And you get back and little Sarah, your daughter's going, oh, Daddy, I need to be at dance in 20 minutes. Yeah. And you're like, all right. Oh, babe, I'm just going out, but the dogs haven't been fed, all right?
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Oh, you're all right. You just, no.
You haven't got an opportunity to decompress.
Yeah. Right, yeah, Sarah, get your stuff together and fucking
You haven't got an opportunity to decompress. No. Now, services will provide, we've got this opportunity for these individuals to do this.
Oh, we've got trim.
But the group, the problem you've got is it's like a pack mentality, isn't it? One person might go, so then they all go.
Yeah.
And it's really important for the officer in charge to just have everyone stay for an hour and have a chat about it later on. But then on-call stations don't have mess tables, they don't have the kitchens, so they don't have the facilities to be able to do that there. And I think, for me personally, with my experience within the service and the instances that I've experienced and the people I've worked with, I really do get the importance of a mess table, of being around those people on those times. It really does help. And also then appreciating on-call and the exposures that they have.
Do you know what I used to do? It's a bit cheeky, but it's advice for people if they want to use it. I used to use the excuse of equipment cleaning and PPE. So I'd say we've got a bit of some blood, a little bit of claret, blah, 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 and the kit was almost... So we're going to book another hour because we just need to get this kit boxed away, because one of the key station metrics is the appliance is ready to go. So I'd use the excuse of PPE, and I'd say we do just need to make sure we scan some stuff and check some stuff to give us an hour together.
But why?
But if people want to go...
But why should we do that? Why can't we just
turn
around and say... Why can't we
say
1 hour welfare?
Because then someone go, all right, we'll send an officer.
But that's down to the line manager having a discussion with the trim officer or whatever the service call it at the time, and saying, do you need this? Do you need? And a number of times I've had it where even when they've failed in the on call, have failed the BA.
Yeah.
I've basically said to them, I've sat down with them, spoke to them, and then I've got a welfare officer to then contact them on top of that as support. I've made sure I've told them that. That's a great shout. Because that's going to have a bigger effect on them potentially than other people.
Because everyone on their on-call station knows they've got it.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris, how did you get on with your rear cred?
Right. Oh, yeah. And I tell you what, there's 2 aspects.
Oh, you're off the run, are you?
And there's 2 aspects of this service. And do you know what? Of the fire service. We can turn around and go, it shouldn't be, it should be. But the reality is there's 2 areas that creates the man or womanhood, the leadership hood of them, and that is BA and instant command.
Yes.
All right. Everything else doesn't necessarily.
You're not safe to command.
Ooh. Right. That is a personal attack on the individual.
Yeah.
BA. You're not good at BA.
You're not even a firefighter.
Those 2 things are bread and butter, and that is a personal attack on me, on my capabilities of being a BA wearer. Those 2, we need to understand, will have a huge emotional effect on those individuals. And what we can't be doing is just giving them like triangles and throwing them at people or going, useless or whatever. We need to create an environment whereby there's an understanding with that, because we can't not do it sometimes. But how we do that and the environment we create and the stereotype and the stigma from it is something that we need to work with. And do you know what? I'm bouncing back loads
do you want
of
a brew
bits.
before you carry on?
Is that a break, is it?
Do you want to get a break?
We'll have a break, yeah, we'll have a break.
The team here at the podcast are extremely excited to announce our brand new partnership with Patrol Store UK. Patrol Store has been serving the UK's police, fire and emergency communities and first responder sector since 2008, providing leading brands such as Hikes, Magnum, 511, Nebo, Opzulu, Highlander, AKU and many, many more of our favourites. They are now also supplying bespoke uniform, PPE and station workwear to fire services around the UK. So for all our listeners that are part of your USAR, your HEART team, your ISAR team, your armed response teams, your fire investigation, your NALO, your hazmat and all of the training departments that have got your own budgets, be sure to get the absolute best for your team at a realistic price by contacting Aaron and the team at Patrol Store and referencing the Firefighters podcast. Patrol Store will also be taking part in our listener competition giveaways as well as providing unique discounts to podcast listeners. So for people that are always asking about Hikes boots as an example, that is one unique discount code that is coming to you very soon through Patrol Store. We've also got some incredible bags. I mean, the Opzulu bags are a game changer. So you know the really Gucci and expensive tactical black bags that everyone's using in CrossFit workouts and taking to the gym and taking to stations? Well, they've basically got that, but it's made better and costs less, because they're not slapping some Gucci expensive brand name on it and it's giving you what you want on a first responder salary. So it's a privilege to be working with Aaron and the team and supporting UK businesses, as well as bringing high quality uniform, footwear, bags, PPE and station workwear to the UK's first responder sector without having to pay those inflated international prices that we've previously had to endure. So be sure to keep your eyes in the notes of the episodes for links to unique offers and discount codes. And if you're looking to buy well and buy once, be sure to get in the notes and head over to Patrol Store UK. Now back to the show.
When I'm looking at it all, because I will listen to all of this anyway, but it will stand out to me.
Yeah, of course.
And I'll be able to go, that's where we finished. Edit from there. Because we'll have the silence where we went for a break.
You are perfect. You're amazing.
I've done 300 of them, so eventually you get used to. So when you've got the mics, you get to do this.
Year?
So what that does as well, and I did it before you came, but it's a spike in the audio because these are separate tracks.
Yeah.
So I've got to align these so that they run the same, so I don't get an incongruence of a millisecond gap.
Do we need to clap together then?
No, it'd be fine, because that we equally wouldn't clap the same. But also, all right, I'm wearing mic 1, you're wearing mic 2.
Okay.
Because you'll be able to hear me on your mic very easily.
Yeah.
And we chose this room because it's got a lot of soft furnishings in it.
It's a lovely
If you've
room.
got a lot of glass in a room, you get an audio feedback, which makes the edit even harder.
I know, yeah.
From
This
thousands.
absorbs sound.
Thousands, yeah. And it's big enough for the sound. By the time it reverberates off these walls, you won't get much
Pete's
back.
Mansion.
Small or what? We want to sell it. There used to be a lovely big double door there. It doesn't actually work now because that thing doesn't match. And it's all,
Where are
shit.
you looking at moving to? It's lovely. I like this because it's right in the corner. You've got your double garage.
I like it, but it's too big. We've got 3 empty rooms upstairs.
Too big?
Yeah, don't you ever have that?
Why don't you make a proper studio in a bedroom then? Or there's no point because you don't get people come around?
And I want to have more disposable income.
Do you want to rent this out then and then
I couldn't afford to
sell it?
Sell it. I'm not bothered. Someone said something to me a long time ago, and it was really interesting. This is a person who's very, very wealthy, runs a big construction company in the local area where I live. I was actually their coach for a long time. So they used to come to my private PT studio, big industrial estate, private thing, loads of Gucci kit, ice baths and all this. And they'd spent their life earning a lot of money.
Yeah.
And they said, no, got that wrong. He said, money's like fuel. You should have enough to get you the places you want to go and enough to do the things you want to do. But life is not about collecting fuel. Life is not a tour of fuel stations. And life is not about getting to a fuel station and staying there and hoarding fuel all of your life. You need enough to help you to get you to do things. Because if you just stayed at the fuel station all the time and filled up loads and loads of IBCs of fuel, you never go anywhere. He says that's what a lot of successful business people end up doing.
Isn't it interesting though?
He says, because I can't do what you do because I'm stuck doing this. I've created a big self-created prison that doesn't allow me the freedoms you assume I have with my money.
Human behaviour though, isn't it?
It's fascinating.
So you always want what the others haven't got.
That's what Jim Carrey said. I wish everyone could get everything they ever wanted to realise it's not what they want.
Exactly. So people will always want more, and the people that want more, but want more in a different way.
I wanted this house now to know that I don't want it.
Yeah.
So the same reason I've owned 7 really, really nice motorbikes. I had a really big, fancy 4x4 covered in chrome with TVs in the headrests and all this jazz. And I've had quite a few nice cars, and I've got rid of all of them. And I built 2 gyms and I've sold them because there's a great book called The Second Mountain. Don't know if you've ever read it. I'd suggest I'll send you a link to it. And the good analogy to take from it is around, you spend all your life ascending this mountain. Obviously, you spend X of your life ascending this mountain. You get to the top of that mountain, and from that perspective, you can see other mountaintops. And you're like, that, I think I might enjoy that. I might enjoy doing that. Like podcasting. I saw podcasting and thought, I'd love that. Because the best thing I do in coaching at the gyms I had was have these types of conversations. These were the most impactful things that would help someone move forward, is getting right down to your blueprint, which I learned through addiction and recovery and things like that. Getting down to your blueprint and understanding, get the long screwdriver in there and just tick the thing right in the bowels of your behaviour, and that will manifest out and extrapolate over the rest of your life. There's no point in me just doing a 6-week shred trick, because I've done fuck all to do with your behaviours there and nothing's really going to change. You'll just revert back to the old you. I need to get back into your personal identity and who you think Chris is and the story you're telling yourself to change the reputation you have with yourself. Because you tell you, I'm a piece of shit, I'm a fat guy, I'm a waster, I'm a loser, my family hates me, my missus, my dad hates me, whoever, whatever. There's a reason you are where you are right now. It's not happened accidentally. And unless we get into that blueprint, nothing else will change. The point I'm making there is, these are the most fun things I had, and I thought I'd really enjoy podcasting, but I was never going to be able to do podcasting because I was too busy building gyms. And I just created a prison where I had to be there all the time coaching people because no one else was having this sort of effect on the clients that I was working with. And it's why I got really good clients, like that construction client. The clients were paying me between £500 and £600 a month. They weren't paying me £40 a week like most PTs. They were paying me that every month, irrespective of how many sessions we did or did not do. Because like we were talking about work the other day, I work all the time. I don't just work 9 to 5. I don't just work 7, whatever you're paying me to do. You're paying me. A coach is helping me change my life. And that's not going to happen in an hour. It's going to happen over 1 million small fingerprints of behavioural change and moments when I need you, like I got and get from my sponsors and help. I need them once every 6 months, or fucking now, or not for a year. But that is the relationship. So anyway, the point I'm making is, when you get to that bit and you realise you want to do something else like podcasting or another business or whatever, you have to have the humility descend from the mountain you're currently on to realise only through going through the valley of humility can you choose to ascend another mountain. Like the fire service analogy. I've got to climb down this ladder before I can climb up the next. I can't just leap from one to the other. I've got to acknowledge there's nothing wrong with what I'm doing and I really enjoy getting here, but I don't want to be here anymore. I want to move, like the house we're just talking about. This is a lovely house, but I don't want to live here anymore because it's limiting my ability to do other things that I want to do. What do I need? What do I need? What do I need? There's a great book about minimalism, reducing your life down to the minimalist aspects that are essential to you. Essentialism, and in fact, I think the book's called Essentialism, the movement's called Minimalism. All I need is a Wi-Fi connection and a laptop to do the thing I really enjoy. The other stuff that I want to do, my wife, we have horses, we have a couple of horses. I'd love to have them at the house with us. So my wife, I want to look out that window and see my wife riding a horse. I don't care if this is a tiny little log cabin with a Wi-Fi connection and running water.
It's what's around it.
If my dress today is not obvious, I'm not wearing anything I wasn't given. This podcast was a podcast hoodie. These trousers are from the fire service. I'm not really materialistic, but I had to get the materialistic things to realise I wasn't materialistic. Do you know what I mean? I've gone down a rabbit hole there, but I'm going to use that. I'm going to leave that in the recording. Because I think
if the mountain was smooth, you wouldn't be able to climb it.
No, and there'd be no joy. And this is a good analogy to bring us back into firefighting. If recruit training isn't marginally difficult, what's the point? Because some people come into it. I've had recruits on recent courses, which have always thought about being firefighters, and there was going to be a success in achieving something difficult that very few people in society will attempt. And if it's easy, and anyone can be a firefighter.
There's no sense of achievement.
Right, anyone can't be a firefighter.
When I've seen,
well done for showing up,
recruits, and I've with 3 services and a college, when it's a challenge, there's a real sense of achievement and camaraderie. Years ago, I used to do when I was in charge of the course in London. I got them to create a box to hold the water. Mm-hmm. So I tasked the group. These were two particular things I'd do. So I tasked them to get the box and put an image that represents them on that box. So it wasn't a picture of them; it was something that represented them.
I don't know, make your own shield thing,
right?
Same thing.
And it was it was a responsibility of them to make sure that box is there on the drill ground and back, and it's always there, and it's got everyone's waters in it, and it was rotated to the team leader. So you obviously put team leader in, and you'd rotate, and they'd be responsible for it. That was the first thing.
Recruit, yeah.
That was the first thing I did. The second thing I did, because this is what I was able to do at that time for that bit, was what was a song that represented them. Okay, and then what I did was when they were doing their it was A test, so which is their general check and stuff on their BA set, I would play their song, right? And that there's a reason for that. Two reasons are, one of the reasons was ownership of the group. Okay, it's a family. They don't want to leave it, so they will work their hardest to stay there, to do the best that they want to achieve. Everyone is equal in that group. Everyone is valued. There's not one person bigger than anybody else. And you always have bigger personalities. You'll have a really quiet person, you'll have a really loud person. But that box and that music represented everyone equally. If they've had a bad wear or a good wear or whatever wear, we play the song. They feel valued, part of a group, and everyone gets to understand that person a little bit. And it had a lot of undertones as to why I did it. And what that did was it really infused like a family environment. It was informal but formal. You know, there was a bit when you needed to show your rank when you needed to show it, and you didn't really need to show it in that environment. It was respecting those people. There was people that were 18 and there was people that were 40. You know, the people with huge life experience that I hadn't got. You know, and I'm treating them as human beings and as a group and as a family, and you know, and it just, I really enjoyed it, and I got and what made it, I didn't really get the feedback from it then, but when I went back to station, there was people that were going, oh yeah, I wish I was on your group, and there was were a group there that sort of really welcomed me back to station, and there was other instructors that had a real horrible time when they went back to station because they had this power trip as an instructor, and I think that's terrible. For me was, how would I want to be taught? How would I want to be treated? How would I want to come into work? And I want to come into work enjoying what I'm doing, learning, and achieving something. And so you've got the fire ground that's harsh because you're pushing them, but then you've got the classroom that's a real sort of family jokes and incorporating music and all sorts, just different senses. And
I used to call it the switch. So it's like the second or third slide that I show recruits. I talk about the switch.
Yeah.
In here, it's a democracy. It's first name basis. It's ideas. It's challenge. It's everything like that. Out there on the drill ground, I have a different level of experiential knowledge, and I need to create a bubble of safety for you to exist in. In order for me to create that bubble of safety, I need to give the drill ground a big hug. So I need to be able to put my fingers around everything in the drill ground to make sure this is safe. So I'm not asking you questions as such out there. I'm giving you instructions at times, and they will sound different. Yeah. They will come with a sense of urgency. They will come with a different tempo. They will sound louder. Yeah. That's not personal to you. That is, you are a tactical cog in this machine of a safe situation that I need to create. Yeah. And sometimes I fail to articulate that properly. But that's the difference between what I'm saying there. I used to do a cohort code of ethics as well. Sounds a bit too servicey. I couldn't think of a better name for it. But basically, they'd come up on the whiteboard and they'd write...
Sorry, I just processed what you said.
They'd write down what this group stands for, and then they'd all sign it. What are we agreeing to do? What do we do? What do we not do? What do we like and not like? But I love that idea of a box And because it serves a functional purpose as well. Because otherwise, the thing on the wall, I used to put it up every time they come in, but it didn't really do anything.
And it was protecting it, because you know what? It gets wet, doesn't it?
And it was easy to forget, though. But if you had a box that's got a functional purpose, all of our water bottles go in the box. Because, otherwise you end up with 10 water bottles scattered about the bloody drill ground.
Yeah.
I'm going to try and steal that, and I would encourage people listening to steal it.
Take it. It's not stealing.
Well, isn't this irony? Like, when we're in school, there's an analogy here, like, in school with the neurodiversity, everything like that, we're sold to sit in lines, do as you're told, sit straight, act as this homogenous, non-individualistic thing.
Yeah.
And also we're told that copying's cheating. Yeah? Copying's not. Entrepreneurs, great copiers. Yeah? Just take what you're doing and pivot it into your version of it.
Take the good things. That's how you learn.
Take the good things and learn and repeat that.
That's why it's important to have experienced bad managers.
Yeah.
In my opinion. I've experienced bad managers. I'm not saying I'm a perfect manager, but what I've done is experiencing bad managers, experiencing good managers, I've taken what works well and what doesn't work well and the consequence of those actions. So therefore what I'll do is try not to do that and do this and improve on this and do those bits. So, you learn from all those aspects, and, copying or taking, that's improving you and bettering yourself.
It's a client thing I used to work on as well, like you just said with leaders there. It's hard to articulate who you are, but it's easier to say who you're not.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? What do I not stand for?
Yeah.
What do I not stand?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? What in my life will I say no to?
Yeah.
That's easier to try and articulate who you are, because who you are sometimes is a bit goal orientated and too much future driven. I'm a successful sort of person who does professional things and achieve whatever. No, you're not though. That's a good aspirational goal. Knowing what you're not, knowing what you don't stand for, it's some fundamental pillars that I used in recovery around what am I not going to do?
Yeah.
Because it was the stimulus and response. It's called an if-then rule in Excel documents. Yeah. So Microsoft Excel, there's an if-then thing.
Yeah.
If this in the column, then that. And that's how some of the software works in the background of it. And I would have that for the old shit moments of what happens in recovery.
Yeah.
Like, when I'm feeling this, I'm going to do that. When this happens, I'll call you. Do you know what I mean? What happens if, because saying, I'm never going to be around that. Well, you might be. You might get put into a situation that stimulates those negative behaviours and old habits that you want to push away from. What's your if then? Do you know what I mean? If I'm in that situation, then I'll do this. If I have to stay at a wedding where everyone's drinking, then I'll do this. Like I've said to you, I have nicotine and things like that. That's like a baby blanket. You know what I mean? It's okay. I know the monkey's rattling the cage. Here's a treat. Quiet the monkey. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's the chimp paradox analogy of giving your chimp a safe space to exercise. Don't just try and suppress the chimp otherwise, because you keep pushing it back in the cage, you just get stronger and stronger, and it will rip that cage apart. And then you've got a chimp out in, and I know we both have, we know people with personal experience with this. The chimp is out then, and it's running around, it's smashing everything, and it's hurting the people I love, and it's breaking things, and it's having a piss in the middle of the supermarket.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Because I didn't give the chimp a safe space to exercise.
Yeah.
I told it was wrong. Yeah. I told it its sheer existence, who it is, and its very presence in my life is wrong. It's not. Addiction is a secret superpower. Yeah. ADHD is a secret superpower. Yeah. It's just like having a hose you can't switch off.
Yeah.
You just need to point it in the right direction and give it a safe place to discharge. Because if you try and bottle it up, it's like trying to push a water balloon underwater. It's going to pop up somewhere. Yeah, and you don't know where it's coming up. And oh shit, it's come up over there and splashed the kids and the family, and that big guy's coming to punch me in the face now. Yeah. Because I didn't give it a safe outlet.
And do you know what, Pete? I think it's really important that you're able to openly talk about this. I appreciate that you talk about this because, as you know, there's family members that go through this, and I know other people that have this, and I see it in the fire service, quite a lot in the UK fire service. I've seen people with addiction issues, whether that be gambling, drinking, drugs. Funny enough, drinking is a drug, but it's calculated differently, weirdly. But all these type of addictions, and there's just this fear of bringing it out or talking about it. The fear of the job, how it will act on the job, how other people feel about it in social environments. You know, I'm trying to better myself. I don't want to drink. Oh, fucking hell, you don't want to drink. You know, and all this. And then sometimes the mentality is to try and get them to drink or to try and break that person. Because you know what? They're a laugh when they're pissed and they're boring when they're not. And you just think, I was somewhere the other day and somebody had said that they hadn't drank for 12 months. And I went over purposely and shook that person's hand and went, okay, well done. Well done. Do you know what I mean? I've never met that person before. I congratulated them and I walked off because I just know, not through personal experience as a person with addiction, but observing it and feeling the pain of somebody observing it that's close to someone that has it. You know, just really appreciate the battles that they've gone through. And what I will say before we go forward is, as a person that has those battles, my experience with the fire service, with all 3 services, have been absolutely amazing to me. Yeah. They have been, and that's something that I value the fire service for immensely. I had...
I think that's stuff people have done because they morally know it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But there hasn't always been an organisational mechanism to enact. Don't get me wrong. Think
that HR are useless.
We know what the right thing to do is.
Yeah. The uniform side have been amazing. So I'll give an example, and I'm not talking about the other 2, but I'll talk about London particularly on this one, right? So I had my son died of hyperplastic left heart syndrome just after he was born, and that was a really difficult thing to cope with, particularly my wife, and that sort of triggered a number of other things, and. At the time, as watch managers, we were like on a cluster leave. So how that worked was you're only allowed so many watch managers off within the area, and when somebody's off sick or that you got to do return to work, I'd look at the policy. You know, there's particular things that you would have to ask that person. What I would do is remove that list and incorporate it into a conversation. All right, I'd listen to the individual. I'd remove some of the points because they're not needed for this particular thing, and I'd have that chat. One of the bits that was always there was you need to inform them of that the service is important and that if you're off, the impact that has on others. And you think, I'm listening to these people and the things that they're going through. It's not important to them as, you know, that a daughter's tried to commit suicide, or that, you know, they're going for a divorce, or they've got financial issues. You know, these type of things as a manager, you know, a lot of what you're doing is personnel management. You're listening, you're a counsellor to all the problems that these people are going through, and you're listening and supporting them the best that you can do within the service. So in the cluster, there was somebody already off, and the Firefighter charity, which is amazing. Okay, Firefighter charity has been throughout my time in the service. The times that I've needed it for recuperation are absolutely brilliant, and I'd always promote people to use it. And it's a thing to fund and support, and it's fantastic for you to use and your family. And I needed a bit of recuperation, and they offered me a date. And the service, I wasn't able to get that leave. So I contacted my HR, and they said, I explained the situation about my son and I needed that break. Firefighter charity had offered me time, and their reply was, okay, you do understand the importance of the fire service. And I went, okay, thank you very much. Boop, put the phone down. I didn't even finish the conversation. I went, no. So I contacted what we call Resource Management Centre, and for the life of me, I've forgotten his last name, but Dave, he was the group manager who was in charge of RMC. A bit like Marmite, some people liked him, some people didn't like him. I told him of my situation, and he said no problem. Didn't even. He said fine, sorted, done. And every year while I was in London, I emailed him how grateful I was and how my family's getting on. You know, and because there's a couple of people that had a real impact on me within London. There was him, a guy called Graham Ellis, who became assistant chief, who has retired now, and Dennis Machin, who nobody would really know. He was in the background. He was a BA instructor in London. He was the one that brought in track procedure, which is what we're going to go into. And it was because of him, what he delivered, how he delivered it, that saved my life. And I went back into training, and I thanked him for saving my life, which he didn't really know, you know. But for me,
you never know the effect,
not at all.
The long-term effect.
Graham Ellis was somebody that it's these little things in it. So Graham Ellis was one. I've deviated again, but Graham Ellis, who I lived in London and then I moved out of London and basically, not many people know at the time, but I stayed at Southwark. I slept there at night. So I'd get there at about...
Still happens all the time, though. It's like the
worst
kept secret in the fire
but you've got to
service.
remember, the training centre was massive, you know, Southwark Training Centre, and I'd basically stay there all week. Mm-hmm. So I lived at the training centre, I worked at the training centre, I went to the gym at the training centre, I went back to sleep at the training centre. I had nowhere to really live at the time, and I was at the training centre all week. I mean, that was, looking back at it now, I'm like, how did I survive? Because that was quite a long time. And what we used to have, we had parking round the corner, and then a particular person wouldn't allow me to park there. So then I parked down the side street, and then they put parking lines there, so I weren't allowed to park there. So then I parked at Southwark and I had a push bike, and then I cycled to Southwark. And at the time, the two main doors to Southwark had been smashed by this big lorry, so both entrances to Southwark, so there was no security there, and I'd secured my bike in the bike shed, and it basically got nicked, and it was at the point that I was just broken, you know. I was living there, I'd got nothing. I'd constantly been affected by this individual that just had it in for me at the time, and then my bike had gone. I was like, oh. And this particular person was a line manager, so they were like, well, you can't claim anything, you can't do anything. So I contacted HR and I said, look, you know, what can I do about this? And they said, you can put in a claim. And I think it was something like, if it was under 350 quid, then you didn't need receipts for it. You'd put it in, would put it in. I had to fill in the proper documents. So I filled in the proper documents, did everything, got a receipt of how much a bike would cost from the local bike shop, submitted it all in. And my line manager had waited. He just held on it. The cameras, bearing in mind, only lasted for 30 days. So the 31 days after, it was sent to my group manager, Graham Ellis. And I just remember Graham sort of, you could hear him before you saw him, you know, just boom, 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 big fella, a tall fella. And he turned up and he went, what's this about, fucking your bike, rah, rah, rah. And I went, so he went down to the security cameras, and the security cameras had been deleted, and he was fuming. And he said to me, he said, what's this between you and this particular person? And I said, nothing. Oh, that's what I said to him. I said, nothing. I said, it's between me and him, and that's where it's staying. And he went, right, I'll be back later. And he fucked off. I thought, fair enough. And then I'm in the office, and he went, Chris, come here. So I came downstairs, and his car was outside, and he opened his boot, he pulled out his fucking push bike. He gave me his bike, and he went, here you go. And I fucking... You know when you've had all that, and they just gave you that. That was just a memory. Just it's not the point of what you get. It was just the principle. It's just the bit. I was just a valued person. Yeah.
I've looked at this holistically.
Yeah,
there's wrongdoing's been done here.
Awesome leader for me. Great person, an inspiration. Something I've never forgotten. Like any leader, some people like you, some people won't like you. And then he helped me transition from training to back operational. Didn't want anything from me. Was just wanted people to move on and develop, and just it was an inspiration, just something that I've never taken. So from Dave in RMC to Graham Ellis to Dennis Machin, these three, and there's others, but these three particular people were just poignant people in my life that I don't go drinking with, I don't see them, but they just made a real personal change to me. So for that I thank them. Thank you very much.
Those people that leave an indelible
definitely
ink on your career. You said several things there which are really pertinent, and so much of that is about doing the right thing. And even when you were talking about addiction and recovery and our honesty and our authenticity, I have this idea of bring yourself to work day. It sounds a bit weird because I know it's always bring your kids to work day. I don't think we do that. And it'd be the hypocrisy and the hilarity, because I always think that the fire service says, be yourself. No, not like that. Don't do that. Don't be like that. And the irony of the fact the podcast even exists is a very sad reality that people enjoy these conversations because they don't hear them.
Yeah.
Because we don't bring ourselves to work.
And that's, and that's where you hear a lot of things about promoting sort of neurodiversity and individuality and creativity, but then it's suppressed in every aspect of the service of we've discussed earlier about barriers and issues that I've had recently of trying to do stuff, and then core code of ethics is put the community first, and that's what you're wanting to do is put your community first, and generally what you hit with is what you can't do and not what you can do, and you just think that's a bit of a kick in the hoo-ha. And you're right, it's about, for me, personality, characters, they make the fire service, and there's limitation. We've got to remember what we're saying here. We're not promoting that people turn around and break legislation and law. No. What we're saying is we're just bringing each people's sort of that they remove the corporate, and I've said this to you.
People are more interested in looking.
I've said this to you, right? Where you've spoke about stuff, and I'm going, Pete, show emotion, right? I'm not the if you're agitated or annoyed or whatever, then do it.
Say I'm pissed off.
Yeah, exactly. So I do. We create this robot environment, and then where there is no room to make a mistake. We got to remember we're human beings, all right, and we will make mistakes. And what we've got to do is look at intentions, which is what I've said earlier. What was the intention of what that individual did? Was it to try and better the situation? And and they'll learn from it. If it is, promote that, promote it, support it, encourage it. Don't knock it. Because then we're scared of our own shadow. We're scared of making mistakes. We're scared of being leaders and deciding. We're scared of putting our head above a parapet. And what will that knock-on effect be in 5, 10, 15, 20 years' time? We're going to be in a stagnating process whereby we won't be able to move forward. We can't make decisions because people are too bothered about, oh my gosh, it's going to affect my career. I'm going to lose my pension. And we're removing this safe bubble. And also, we're removing the opportunity to develop and support. Well, I'm going to tell you the situation, okay, right?
Before you go there, I always think that, because what you're talking about there is professionalism. And professionalism is like a prison that people are screaming to get inside.
Yeah.
It's like, there's an old Chinese quote which says, water which is too pure has no fish. And if you try and create something, like you say, we'll have a future that's the sterile fire service that's got no character in it. People want to join the fire service because it's full of weird characters. Story.
Ever heard the quote that true leaders are readers? Well, we believe this is true. Listeners often ask where we go to keep our finger on the pulse of what's happening in the sector globally. So there are a few key publications which I encourage you to go check out. Now, if you're looking for insights on disaster management, fire protection and firefighting, for us, we go to Asia Pacific Fire Magazine. And when you're looking for the latest on the Middle East fire protection industry and fire services, it's Gulf Fire Magazine. And our quarterly check-in is with International Firefighter Magazine, reporting to municipal, industrial and fire training professionals. Now, next Next up, I'm widely accepted to be the global voice for passive and active fire protection. This is a good one. It's International Fire Protection magazine. And finally, and perhaps the most relevant to our predominantly UK audience, I'd strongly suggest subscribing to UK Fire magazine, reporting to the United Kingdom fire protection industry and fire services. We're really excited to announce that after a long-standing relationship and mutual respect, we've now partnered with MDM Publishing, who bring you all of these essential publications. Because in a world of change, the learners shall inherit the earth, while the learned shall find themselves perfectly suited for a world that no longer exists. Eric Hoffer said that, and I believe he was right. So keep growing, keep learning, and keep yourself in the know and at the cutting edge of what's happening globally by dropping into the notes. And as a gift from the podcast, you can actually subscribe to any of these publications for free using the link in our notes. Now back to the show.
Okay, so I had, he's a very good friend of mine, and we became friends through working together. All right. So he is a revert, is Muslim faith. This was in London, and we would have, between me and him, really, really open conversations.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to understand, and to be honest, a lot of what he said morally was like, oh wow, I'm not I'm not a religious follower. And he wouldn't go and say, faith this, faith that, and sort of about the Muslim faith, or he would only answer what asked.
Yeah.
Okay, he wouldn't push
rabbit down your throat.
Anyone. Yeah. And there was, learning about the pillars, learning about Ramadan and Eid, and Ramadan itself, is a personal relationship between that individual and their God, and it's only them. Because a lot of things of what we do is to appease others or to make ourselves feel good to others. This is a personal relationship between them. Anyway, going on this, and I remember, being in the being in the TV room, and this individual, I'm trying not to say the names. So this individual, a friend of mine, was downstairs, and upstairs, this individual's experience was, Muslims are allowed to lie to white people. That was their belief, okay? That was what they'd experienced, right? So I went, really? And they went, yeah, they're allowed to, blah, blah, blah. So I went straight downstairs, spoke to this individual, and I went, are you allowed to lie to white people? And he went, what? And we had this conversation, he went, right, okay. So certain things within the faith is, if telling the truth was to harm others, then you're able to lie. The same as you could denounce the faith if it was going to harm you or others. So you could denounce the Muslim faith. You can denounce Allah if you're...
So you don't die on the cross.
Yeah.
Analogy.
If
be a martyr.
If it's going to put other people at risk, you're allowed to eat pork if it's going to put people at risk. Okay, so there's boundaries, there's control measures, there's purposes, there's reasons. All right. So I was like, okay, so that makes sense and that's understandable. Right. Follow me. Let's go upstairs. So we went upstairs and bosh, we had it out. Oh, well, that was a colourful discussion because obviously the first part of it is I'm Bertie Smalls. I'm like I've said stuff and that's agitated these people. And then what's happened is this person, my friend, is able to educate people. They're allowed to listen. And that what it did do in the bigger picture was create a really decent relationship between the two of them as a group of people. The two of them, what I mean by is a watch and this Muslim individual.
Yeah.
Because this Muslim individual was separating themselves.
Yeah.
And the watch were... It was nothing more than, that individual separating themselves, so I'll leave them to it. Do you know what I mean? It was nothing more than, and then what they did was, it brought them together to certain aspects and create conversations and then broaden. Whether they took that on board or not is entirely up to them. But the opportunity was there for that education process to come in. And sometimes, there's going to be things in the environment whereby people are going to have a view. And that view is stemmed by their childhood environment, their demographic environment, their media environment.
Yeah.
And sometimes, it's good to be able to discuss things. You remember the Tony Blair sort of era, anytime anything was mentioned to further sort of improve people understanding, politically, you were shot down. You know, that was an environment there that was shot down. And I always remember that sort of time. And we're in an environment now that, you know, we say, this is a safe space. You can openly discuss things. And I've experienced people that have openly discussed things because that's their understanding. Not that they're specifically being discriminatory. It's their understanding. And I think it's important for us to educate and support that and improve that. But what's actually happened is people have been sent down the road for it. And I think there's a time and a place for it, and there's a time and a place to help create an environment of openness and talking and educating and broadening.
For people that don't understand, being sent down the road means being sent to some quote-unquote headquarters of disciplinary management or sacked.
You know, and you just, you know, and we're creating it's an entrapment, isn't it? We're creating a safe space. People will openly discuss things because that's what their understanding is, and then we shoot them down. And don't get me wrong, there is particular things whereby you know by what they say is that is their belief and that is wrong and that is they're out. I'm not promoting that. What I'm promoting is people's belief of, okay, so years and years ago, there was I remember my watch saying, I'd just come out of training and my watch had said, you know, what is positive discrimination? The only people that are coming through are women and black people. Yeah, that's what was coming in. Yeah. Because that was what was being said. Yeah. So what I did was we went to Southwark and we had a look. And you've got to remember there's 16. So there was like 9, 10, 12 courses, predominantly white males. Yeah. And I went, where is that? There's you know, a small percentage of women, small percentage of ethnic minority groups within that, but the large proportion is still white males. And then so you've got this perceived bit, you know, that's come in, and then you've got reality. And it's about allowing people to understand that reality and telling them and not shooting people down. Because they're not being discriminatory or offensive with what they're saying. That's their understanding. And what we've got to do is show that that's wrong in what they're saying and this is the right way. You know, that's it. Little terminology, entry control. So, entry control, got a little running man. Press the running man. And I'll go, running man? Where's his Todger? Yeah. It's not a running man, is it? It's a running icon. Yeah. And it's those little things that about that education. Incident commander. Does incident commander, is that a male terminology or incident commander? It's not he. Casualties. So the dummy, he's left down in the side of that room. He, is it? It's a dummy, isn't it? It's not got, there's no clothes on it, there's no face on it, there's no sexual parts on it. It's a dummy. Yeah. You know, why are you creating that? You know, and it's not, let's run that person. Let's educate that person. Let's educate. That's not a running man icon on the entry control board. That's a running icon. Yeah. Okay. There's no. Somebody said that, and then that's just been progressed through an individual delivering that training, and then everybody else has cascaded it. That's all that is.
I think you do it best through soft terminology, though. Like you say, not just making it part of your vernacular when you're talking. Because I remember speaking to someone about public signage, about guiding people out of buildings as part of the evacuation process. But to be fair to them, they said that, you know, you see the running man icons on exit signs and stuff like that, but exit signs, they're on the way out, aren't they? So you got to get that joke. Help me with that one. That was a joke.
Do you know what? Process it. Go on then, tell me the joke. That joke. They're on the way out.
Exit icons are on the way out. You left me hanging there. I played it too soft. I should have got in harder. Hopefully people will get me on that one.
Oh, dear. Thanks, Pete. You've done me on that one.
You said something really important there I want to zoom in on about diversity.
Yes.
So I think we're doing phase 1 diversity. Yeah. And what I mean by that is we're doing visual diversity. Yeah. Because you've spoken a number of times about dyslexia, ADHD, thinking differently, neurodiversity, things like that. Yeah. We're doing phase 1 diversity at the minute, which is we want people that look different but think and sound exactly the same. Yeah. And I see this with a number of people of different backgrounds or different sexes being supported and promoted through organisations because they, quote unquote, tick a box, but they think exactly the same as what you do. And when I hear some of these individuals talk, I'm like, you're not a human. Are you AI? You know what I mean? I'm like, you're not a human being. How did we beat so much of your individuality out of you and just keep the bit we wanted.
Interesting, isn't it?
Like, you look like a woman, or you look like someone of a different religion, or you look like whatever. But as long as you think exactly the same as me, you don't upset the apple cart and you promote the same ideas that I want to promote, then we'll help you along your way. And I think that we're not fully, because you said, like, you go up to training school and you go, oh, and it's a running joke when you see a new bunch of recruits and someone comes along just to visit for the day and go, oh, really diverse group. It's a group of white males. And I go, oh, yeah. And they're like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, what? And I'm being a bit of a dick, I know, but I'm like, they're all very different. You know, that lad on the left was in care for the first 16 years of his life.
I completely agree with what you're saying.
You know, but oh, what? Just because they all look the same, so the optics aren't right for me. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's where we fail, and we do fail white males because you're not the same as me, but on a poster we look the same.
Yeah, I mean,
you will come up with solutions and ways to solve the challenges of the UK Fire and Rescue Service that I will not come up with because of your personal experiences and the way you've been developed, grown, the nature-nurture argument, your social dynamic. If I'd have lived your life and had your experiences, I'd probably think the same as you, which is difficult when you have a real problem with what someone thinks and you're like, if I was in there, what would I have to believe in order to think the way that Chris thinks?
Yeah.
Because you think very differently to me, but to you it's logic.
Yeah.
But to me it's not, because I don't know the same things you know.
Pete, do you know what? I understand with what you're saying, and we have to, and I agree both apart. So, okay, that's a real big, deep bit.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. So we have to look, and I might be wrong, but we have to look back a little bit, okay? So, generally, historically, it's every 30 years there's a mass recruitment within the fire service. Yep. So
going through
we're 30 years behind, stroke now 40 years behind generally, okay, with what's going on. And I do remember an instructor at Southwark, a black instructor who's retired now, so you're probably looking at 70s. And he was told by a firefighter in the 70s that, like, you know, I want to join the fire service, and the fire service was doing like the sort of promotion community safety bit, and they went, oh, you'll never join the fire service, you're black, right? That's what he got told. And then, you know, he was part of the fire service, he joined the fire service, part of the fire service, part of training, you know, and part of he was my instructor, and then I worked with him, you know, and then he retired. So what we have to look at is it's not achievable goals, but it's about sort of promoting the community, isn't it? And it's like you said, it's phases. It's about how do we do that? Mm-hmm. Because if we do see someone from an ethnic minority group on the appliance, on the front of the appliance, on the side of the appliance, we're allowing the community to turn around and say, I can be that.
Great.
Yeah, we're doing 100%. That aspiration. And you know what?
But I think we've done that bit.
Yeah. I mean, we can always...
I don't think we should stop doing it.
No. I mean, we can always improve.
Yeah.
You're right. And it's not about stopping that. It's expanding that. It's broadening that. It's not separating it. So, because you're going to have neurodiversity within ethnic groups. You're going to have neurodiversity in white groups. You're going to have neurodiversity in everywhere. So, UK
has been a multicultural society for 70, 80, 90, longer years.
Yeah, so it's promoting that and understanding the value of that. And bearing in mind, right, what's really interesting is years ago, I remember the sort of interview questions, and it's like, you know, why is diversity good? Well, you know, diversity is good that if we've got a woman that's in RT, like in the fire service, that they're more empathetic. So in a road traffic collision, they're quite calm into the casualty, while the big burly men are cutting the car to bits. And you just think the mentally of that is absolutely stupid, but believable at the time. And it was a ridiculous point.
People still say that now.
Ridiculous point. Now. You know what? What I will say is, I really understand. And I spoke to because one of my line managers, I'm really trying to restrict sort of saying names, but from the Beam community, really nice, absolutely fantastic person, right? And I had a conversation with him not long ago, about really seeing it and understanding it. So I went down this street that was really a high street that's really, really diverse, had all the sort of Diwali sort of stuff still up on there. And I was just walking down, part of work, and I'm walking down. Every shop was full and it was bright. And there weren't gambling shops. There weren't alcohol shops, pubs. It was, you know, you got like all the wedding outfits with all the, you know, all diverse shops, all cake shops and food and restaurants and toy shops, and everything was diverse. And then I went to another area that is predominantly, it's like an old mining town, predominantly white, and 75% of the shops are all closed down in this promenade. And it looked, you know, it's just dead. It's dead. Yeah. And you just think, wow, that is diversity in a nutshell. Because if that diversity was in this place here, all those shops would be full.
If there was a more community feel there.
It would be bright. It will be full. There will be funding for the local infrastructure.
Greater social connections.
Exactly. And that's it. That's that bit of. It's not about, well, this person can particularly help on this or that. It's just all those connections that diversity can provide.
Yes.
Through local services, through economy, through support, through help. You know, there was something I learned. I only learned the other day, so I watched this bit. I'm going deviating again, but okay. So there's a real big sort of hammering at the minute about diversity within the UK and Sharia law and Muslims within the community, and they're trying to take over the world and blah blah blah. Right. Anyway, right. So there was a little bit on. They said, with anyone that's Muslim, 2.5% of their earnings is given to charity. All right. So I then spoke to my mate and I said, "Is this true?" And he went, "Okay, so if you have, it's set out in weight and goals. So basically, if you have like 10 grand in savings, it's about 10 grand in savings that you don't need to touch on a day-to-day basis. 2.5% of your earnings you feed back into charity."
Okay.
And those charities can be local infrastructure charities. Any charity that you wanted to do, you put it back into a charity.
Is this a community belief? Is it?
It's a religious.
Okay.
Every Muslim that has over £10,000 in savings gives 2.5% of charity. Yeah, that's what if they follow the religion, the faith, that's what they've got to do. Okay.
Seems like a modern thing to put into an older religion.
It's based on weight of gold and silver.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So he did the equation for me. It was based on 88 grams of gold and X amount of grams of silver. I might have got that the wrong way around, so apologies. Yeah. But so equated to that economically is about 10 grand.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's all in that. So it's about 10 grand. So if you've got 10 grand in savings, 2.5. And then he turned around and said, if 10 of the richest people globally put 2.5%, that's £7.7 billion. £7.7 billion, right? So what do you want in your life? Yeah. Do you want people that are there that, you know, that will go to the local community, open the door and give you cakes and food after Ramadan, and will give 2.5% of their wage earnings to charity and help local infrastructure and charity and stuff?
Support their shops,
it's not about religion, is it? It's about moral. It's about people. It doesn't matter about the
I think religion is what makes it murky, because people get bogged down in their perceptions of some religious beliefs, often poorly proliferated by the press.
Yeah, definitely.
Which give negative connotations to religion.
Yeah.
And people think religion is the source of all the wars and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And so we can get nervous and or reticent to discuss or promote different religions. Because again, a lot of it comes down to a lack of understanding.
And isn't it interesting though?
Every Muslim is a terrorist. Yeah. Everything is, and you're like, no, well, that's just how we identified that person, because it was the most convenient identification form for us at that time. Yeah. We said, they would put it in the press. How will people know what this is as quickly as possible? Just say they're a Muslim, because they're a black person and they look a bit Muslim-y.
Yeah.
So just say Muslim. And you're like, well, that's the I think there's so much crossover. And I have this conversation about, so I'm not remotely religious, but I got married in a church.
Yeah.
Because religion's wicked. Yeah. And I'm not even religious. Religious buildings and communities are beautiful.
Yeah.
Like you go to some of these ceremonies.
But a church is not the building. The people are the church.
That word church, like you say, I just tripped it there and associated it with a physical thing. Because I always say to people, look, if you go somewhere, you go to a group, you go to a community, you go to a place once a week, and as a result of going to that place, you feel better, you act better in your community, it encourages the best parts of you, then even if it's placebo, isn't it a good thing?
Yeah.
Who cares what we call it? If I call it the sofa church, you and I sat here on the sofa, doesn't matter what you call it, if your relationship with it manifests into a better version of you and your community and your family values and blah, blah, blah. Does it matter what we call it?
I agree.
But there's negative connotations to the word.
My cousin's a vicar, and again, like similar to you, it's funny how we'll go, we're not religious, but and we have to get that in the conversation, don't we? Weird, isn't it? It's like a sort of psychological bit. But
I don't know why I said that.
But no, I agree. Yeah, this is human behaviour. That's what we do. And
because I suppose I don't want to be bad. People make assumptions when you say it.
But I really value the importance of religion. I value the importance.
I think the fire service acts like a religion because you feel part of a bigger thing.
Yeah, I had a chaplain come round and ask me how I was the other day in the fire service. I've never seen one before. That was really nice. That was a nice thing.
Still a lot of them.
So, who's creating a large amount of these food banks? Who's doing the Sure Start? A lot of that's gone down. So who are creating a lot of these family oriented supports? It's the church. It's I tell you what, it's not just the church. It's religious communities.
Yes.
It's faith communities.
It's value driven.
It's them working together to support the people that are beaten at the bottom, that are just being dragged through everything. And you've got the elite. You've got even myself. We don't see that. But, my cousin sees it, and I see it with other sort of faiths, going round with the role that I'm doing at the moment and seeing it a lot more, that how religion has a real importance in the local community.
People that have the least seem to give the most as well.
And look at it another way, right? You get a lot of people that believe in religion that they have an acceptance of death. That's a part of life. It's a process. They're not necessarily material bound. They understand wealth, and wealth is people, memories, the impact that you have on people. And when you're older, they don't have that fear of death. They don't have that stress. They're present more. They're in the moment more. And we know, my observation is, I know that a little bit more because I see that even sort of people that have lost their way or have, whether it's through criminality or whether it's through addiction, there's a lot of the 12 steps, for example, was faith driven to start off with, and there's two directions of that now. It's still within
that comes from the Serenity Prayer.
Exactly. Understand what is it?
The Serenity Prayer is give me the and the wisdom to know the difference.
Give me understand the wisdom to know, the things that I can change, the things I can't, and
give me the strength to change the things I can change. The acknowledgement of the things that I know are outside of my control, and the wisdom to know the difference. But it's built around the Serenity Prayer, which is a religious context.
Correct.
And we took that into addiction.
Yeah.
I'm terrified of my sponsor hearing this and knowing I've forgotten it. Just because I'm deep in this conversation. I'm going to have oh God, I feel terrible now. Really bad, actually.
Well, wait, do you know what? It's off the cuff. I caught you off the cuff.
It's okay. But
that was religious led to start off with.
Take the message. Don't worry about the messenger.
Yeah. So for me, I really, there's a moral compass that as socially, I think we've lost a little bit, with what I'm seeing and where we're going and
because we've vilified religion.
But I think religion and faith is a really, really important thing, and in the basic principles of the 10 Commandments, the core values, and then everything that's stemmed from them. I think they have a value and an importance. And do you know what? It's really weird that we've sort of diversed from that. So going back to your original point.
What happens what happens when we die?
So for me personally, I think I've taken from the earth and I'll give back. And what I give back is that my body will break down and will be fed back into the planet, and that will allow that planet to feed from what I've taken, and then I'll feed other things like animals and people. And
but are you your body?
It's an do you know what? I don't.
Here's the concept of the soul.
Yeah, I've not really deep. I don't really have a deep thought process into it, because I think sometimes it can be quite scary. You know, like thinking about, really deep thinking about death and where we are and what we often, closing my eyes and not
Forever.
having that sound and vision ever again, and just that lostness, and also about, you know,
what happens when you
space
dream?
and how small we are, and to the what is on the edge of space, what you know, your brain just can't process
Ethereal
it.
thinking,
Yeah. And I tend to just value the present a lot more, about the little things that I just value more. This conversation,
But that's
I'm having
why
now.
I think it helps. My relationship with morbidity and the finite existence of our life helps me to be more present. Because I will never have this conversation again in this depth, covering these topics and have this connection to you. I hope we have other connections at other times, not being recorded, but we'll never have this
Probably
again.
Telstar House is going to be another conversation, I think.
No, wait, we'll get around to it. But there's an old thing, the Greek mythology, where everybody envies the gods, but they say, no, you've got it wrong. The gods envy us because we're mortal, because everything is more important, because it will be gone one day. And I didn't think about this as much until I saw someone die in an RTC that took too long, basically. And the person died in the car.
Took too long getting them out.
There was a myriad of complications with it, but my belief is that we weren't as good as we could have been, and that's maybe a bit of self-blame. But 10 seconds earlier, they were alive, and they were moving, and really struggling, really. They needed more help than we could give them. And then they died. And something was there 10 seconds ago that's not there now. Because when you see a dead person, and sometimes when you go and do body identification, about a month before I joined the fire service, my cousin died in a car crash, and the station that I joined went to his car crash where he died. Right. And we went to go and identify the body about a couple of days before I started my course. And they don't look like the person anymore, if you ever see dead bodies that you know. Because who that person was, his name was Daniel Wakefield. He's not there anymore, but something's there. And that's what made me start thinking about, that's just a vessel. Yeah. That's just
There's like
thing.
an emptiness.
Yes. It doesn't feel like him. He's something, even if you open their eyes, which I did because I was a curious young lad, and I was told off for it by my mum. Because you shouldn't touch them, apparently, but you do whatever you like with them. Not sort of, but not. Strange. Not going to.
Let's end this conversation.
He wasn't there anymore, and that made me think. And then I remember a few weeks into my course or whatever, we were talking about thermal imaging cameras, and you do the thing where you put the hand on the thing and take your hand off, and you see heat exchange. And I connected that dot with, you can't destroy energy. Energy just gets transmitted. I say a word now, reverberates into vibration in the air, molecules hits your inner ear, blah, 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 and then it dissipates and dies and passes. I'm using all my energy and heat, and tonight I'm going to go sleep, rebuild it. Yeah? So I think energy just transfers, it just goes somewhere else. Like you say, your body feeds the earth. It just changes. But you said, like, what happens when you close your... Well, what happens when you're dreaming? I think your mind is going somewhere else. It's going into another realm, another sphere that we can't access here because we're too connected to everything, and all this stuff's so important. But it's not really. I think this is just one version of how we're existing. Because if you do experience a nightmare, your body can't tell the difference. You wake up with hot sweats and cold flushes, and because your mind can't tell the difference between reality and what's happening in your mind. So I think something else happens with the mind. But it also got me thinking about, which might bring us nicely onto Telstar House, is, are you ready to die? Are you ready to die now? Strange thing to ask you as you're alone in my home.
Am I ready to die now? No. I don't think... Is that a rhetorical question?
No.
Okay, so...
Are you ready to die versus do you want to die?
Okay, all right.
I don't want to die.
No.
But are you ready to die?
Okay, so did you ever see that Ricky Gervais bit when he said, when I'm dead, like, it's like being stupid. The person that's stupid never knows they're stupid. It's the people around them that knows they're stupid, right?
Yes.
And then it's about being dead. I'm dead, so I won't know I'm dead. Yeah. It's the effect it has on others. And then there was that bit on Keanu Reeves. There was an interview with Keanu Reeves, and the question was asked to him about what happens when we die. And Keanu Reeves basically said, I don't know what happens, but I know that impact will affect the people around us, and it'll affect them. And it was I'm obliterating what he said, but it was a really valued point of what he said. And it was
setting off a bomb.
Yeah, it was just that. It was just that effect. So, and interesting with Telstar House, I nearly died, which my kids will laugh at because the amount of times I've said to them that I've nearly died, it's a running joke within the family. But at that point there, for me, I just wanted to go to sleep. That was it. I was so hot. I was hot. I was burning up.
Did you think about anything you hadn't said?
No.
When I ask about, are you ready?
I was
to die?
that tired. I just wanted to go to sleep. That was it. That was my bit. There was no light. There was no this. There was no. I just want to go sleep. So when I hear people, and I said this the other day about, I remember many moons ago when they first give the case study for Adam, me and Bill Forst for Bethnal Green, the two firefighters that unfortunately passed away with the basement fire. And I do remember this individual saying, well, I'd have done this and I'd have done that. And I got quite agitated because you don't know what you would have done, okay? Because we've got the information and now we're reviewing it. What we've got to do is respect those individuals, because the mistakes that were made is where we will learn and improve. And that's what we've got to value. Yeah.
You rob yourself of the learning by saying, I'm different.
Yeah, with Gill Industry. And the other day, it was Blainer. They were talking about Blainer, which was in the 90s. I think it was 94, sort of 92, 96, something like that.
94, I think it was.
Yeah.
We've covered it on the podcast.
House fire. Yeah, exactly. And then, hearing an individual say, well, I would have done that. And I'll go, oh, well, whatever. Okay, we're not here to criticise what they've done, because they didn't know that information at that time, all right? We would have probably done exactly the same what they've done.
Yeah.
What we've got to do is just appreciate and value the loss that they've made for us to not have that same process. And so
you've got no idea how the future will judge you now.
There's a dignity and respect that we provide for those people that we have that case study. I'm bouncing a little bit. I'm bouncing again. So this guy's retired now. I did a leadership course many, many moons ago, and there was a guy he was from Euston Fire Station, and he was first in attendance to the Paddington rail crash. Okay.
Whoa.
And what they did when they arrived was, the first thing that they did was they smashed the fences down. They didn't do anything other than create accessible. That's all they did, right? And then what he was doing was, when they were there, there were the bodies that were all over the train track, and the little thing that they did was the rats came and they were coming onto the track and they were trying to eat the bodies. They were just trying to nip at them. And what they did was, to give the respect to those bodies, because they had to stay in situ, was just they worked just to keep those rats away from them. And that's their little bit of respect that they gave those people. And that, to me, was it really hit me. It was a little conversation that he had 20 years ago that I heard, and I've never forgotten it. And it's just giving the dignity and the respect to whoever, whether it be people we work with, whether it be the community that we're serving, whether it be victims that we're dealing with at the time. And that was, that really sort of hit me. So the bit when you're talking about the RTC with that individual, what I was thinking in my head was, what was the last conversation did they have? Were we there giving them support and saying everything's going to be okay? Or were we ignoring them and concentrating on the car? Because we can't stop that person from passing. But what we can do is just give them that respect by just giving them that comfort for when that passing occurs.
The personal connection.
Exactly.
Because the fear is dying alone.
Yeah.
I'm alone.
Yeah,
I'm dying. Help! No one can hear me. I'm dying.
So we may have policies and processes that might restrict, and we may be agitated and annoyed by that. But what was our relationship with that person, and did we help in that passing? So it's not about just helping.
Because even if they don't die, that's the story they tell. You arrived at my house fire, you saved 2 people, you saved the house. They will. People only ring the fire and rescue service once in their lifetime, maybe, if that.
Yeah.
And you will be part of the story they tell of everything. This guy came, I was always saying to Chris, and he spoke to me and he asked me about my home and about the kids and about, and he made it personal to me. And Chris and the team were fantastic. The story they tell will be about the people. The fire service, we think of it as like a big, homogenous, non-naming thing. The fire service is just a collection of people, and we forget everything you've articulated today has been around this personal connection and how important that is. The lessons you've learned, the leadership lessons you've taught, the individual acts of empathy that you've experienced. You're not telling me, and I promise people, we're going to come on to Telstar House in a minute. We've not spoken tactics. We've not spoken, this equipment, the dynamic risk. We've not spoken about any of that. And that is the bit, whether we're talking about recruitment, leadership, management, health and well-being, humanity. We're human beings, not human doings. We are here for it's like sales. People don't buy from salesmen, people buy from people. People don't like to go shopping, they like to go shopping with friends. That's how, all of this stuff is human connection. Do you know what I mean? But I want to be respectful of your time. We've been speaking for like 3 hours now.
Have we really?
No, but that's absolutely fine.
Yeah, wow.
I want to be respectful of your time.
I've enjoyed the conversation.
I've loved it, brother, but I don't want people to leave them hanging. But we will have a follow-up conversation. Let's go into the bowels. I've got loads of notes for us to talk about on a future podcast. I'd love to have you back on, brother. Let's go into the bowels of Telstar.
Okay. So
set the scene.
All right.
Give us a bit of an insight. Give us a time of where we are in the history.
I do too. I tend to sort of cover 2 stories. I think I sort of said earlier. So I have used Telstar House in training because there's a lot of learning points from there from a core BA perspective, and there's 2 parts to this story. And I link them together, and there's a bit of humour to it because that's how you process it, but it keeps people engaged.
That's the teacher. So let's reading a presentation.
Yeah, let's look at 2003. It's on the internet. If you put,
I've got a link. I'm going to put it. There's loads of links in the bottom of this, guys. There's links to Blainer. There's links to all sorts of stuff. Look underneath the notes.
So it was the backup building for the London Underground. That's what Telstar House was. It was based in Paddington. And it was 11 stories high, open plan. This was before portable appliance testing. This becomes evident a little bit later. Largest fire loading since the Second World War, this building. This is what they've got calorific value. I think one of the exits were blocked, and there was only one exit. It was at night. Might be wrong. I think it was July, bearing in mind I was a bit blurred at the time. So it was hot, so the windows were open on this block of flats. Office block. Right, so that's that bit.
Yep.
Right. So I
joined 11-story building, high fire loading.
Oh, yeah.
We're given the proximity of it. People are thinking wind driven, they're thinking loads difficulty, access, egress. Okay, set the scene.
So hang on, I've got that bit.
Sorry, go,
Then I'm going, blah, 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 blah. Right. I first stepped in. So that was a couple of weeks. I think it was 2 or 3 weeks.
Where were you in your career at this point? Sorry.
I just started.
Okay.
If you look at it, it says there that this was my first wear. My first wear, right? So I joined Kensington Fire Station, and I'm walking up. And as I'm walking up, the appliances on the outside. This is when it was a 2 appliance station. Walking up, I saw this individual, and I introduced myself. And before I even walked into the fire station, my nickname was Bertie. Right?
Bertie.
Bosh. Not even walked through the door of the fire station. My name was Bertie. So this individual walked through and he went, all right, everyone, this is Bertie. He's just started. All right, Bertie. All right. Okay. And then I did it.
Why Bertie?
I'm not going into that one because I like sweets. That's all I'm going to say. No. So, but, right, when I was in training, I always remember they said, right, we're not allowed nicknames. Okay. And then I was there 2 hours and my first nickname was Spud. I'd got Spud. I'd got a number of other nicknames, right? but Spud was the one that stuck at the time. Potato waffle, waffle, right? This is where this came from. So
There's so many. The evolution of nicknames.
Yeah, I know. I made the fatal mistake of going, I was called Spud in training. Can you call me Spud? And they all looked at me and went, all right, Bertie. And then that was it. Then it just stuck, didn't it? So Bertie, that becomes sort of prominent later on. You have to remember as well, at the time, when we donned our BA sets, we donned them where we just whack the shoulder straps up tight. Yeah. This is a prominent bit because we don't do that now. We
the
talk
Bergen
about
approach to putting the weight on the
fist underneath the shoulder pads. This nationally came out. It was reviewed. Came out after this job.
Yeah,
and again, that's a point.
Yeah.
So I see my station officer, and he goes, right. So 20 pump fires you won't do a lot because there'll be too much going there. You won't have a thatch fire. And just basically a lot of things that you won't have. Within 3 months, I had an 8 pump thatch fire, I had a cylinder job, I had 20 pumpers, and I was hospitalised, right? Okay. And he went, oh, your development book signed off. Thank you very much. So, So probably it was a week or two into it, and there was a guy there, and I will say his name, called, I won't say his name, his nickname, all right, which was Spandex, all right? So I said, oh, why do they call you Spandex? And he said, oh, because I was caught in a gold lycra suit doing star jumps in front of the mirror. That's what he told me, right? Now, let me try and give you an image. He got a mullet, blonde hair, and he walked a bit like Jar Jar Binks from Star Wars. Do you know what I mean?
Fantastic.
It's just sort of that. That's the image I've got of him. And if Spandex is listening, I do apologise. I absolutely love you to bits, right? Yeah. So, again, this is relevant later on. So, Bertie, Spandex. We were the BA crew on the back of our pump, right? Yeah. So we had two pump ladder pump. So there's me and him.
How far is he in his career?
Just come off his diamonds.
Wow. Okay.
So he just finished being a recruit, and I've got my diamonds on. Deviated a little bit. Every time
people can connect with this.
If you're a regular listener to the podcast, then chances are you are big into your own personal development and the development of firefighters around you. So I wanted to remind you of our mobile app Drill Book. This is a free training and development resources made by firefighters for firefighters. Heading on to Drill Book, you will find incident debriefs, radio messages, knots and lines, quick reference guides, quizzes every single day. We've got useful links to the ERG, to Web Rescue, to Jessup, Euro Rescue, 10-second triage, National Operational Guidance, and not to mention our daily quizzes where you will find questions on extrication, casualty handling, breathing apparatus, fire development, water rescue, rope rescue, you name it. It is the go-to resource if you've got a spare 5 minutes on the firehouse to develop yourself and those around you. Not only that, if you're looking to get into the fire service, we've got advice on there on interview questions, interview answers. You can build your own questioning in there. And again, remember, this is built by firefighters for firefighters, so you can add your own drills in there. You can pick the drills that you find the most favorite. There is literally hundreds of training ideas, hundreds of drills in there. Remember, this app is absolutely free and it grows every single day down to the contributions of our thousands and thousands of users. It's freely available on Android, Apple, and you will find it in the links for this podcast. Remember, it's called personal development. The clue's in the name. You've got to work twice as hard on yourself as you do on the job. So always be growing, always be developing. Now let's get back to the show.
So every time we went to like an AFA, an automatic fire alarm, we turned up, and because it was central, you'd have Kensington, so 2 appliances Kensington, you'd have Chelsea, you'd have North Ken, Knightsbridge, they'd all turn up, right? And they were all full of recruits, so you've got about 8 people with these diamonds on. And this member of public said, why have you got diamonds on your head? And we said, hazmat expert, right? And they went, yes. Hazmat expert? Why is there so many hazmats? Right? And it's just, that was it, we're all hazmat. We look about 17, so no hair at all on our face. Yeah, we're hazmat experts. Anyway, so that was the bit. So Spandex had just come off his diamonds, I'm on my diamonds, and we get called to, so it's a night shift and I'm dying for the toilet, right, I need a wee. And then the bells go down, and I think the time it was the so the bells go down, and we get called to AFA Paddington, all right, automatic fire alarm. So I'm thinking, okay, I need the toilet, bells are going down, don't want to be the last one on the machine. No. So I'm going to bomb down on the machine, hold it in, we're going to get called, turned back, and then, I'll have my piss. En route, make pumps 4. Oh no, we've got a job. Yeah. Make pump 6. Yeah. Oh no. And then they pumped 8, right? And if you look at the image on Telstar House, where there's an old Volvo appliance, that's our appliance. So we turned up and the windows have popped on, I think, the 7th floor. There's flames coming out. There's debris flying. It was everywhere. And it was a real surreal situation.
Adrenaline's bouncing. You're getting off the truck.
Oh, my goodness me, it is, yeah. So
what's the OIC saying here? Is there any brief en route? Or?
Do you know what may have been, but I can't recall it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like your brain's going, oh.
I'm going to have to wait.
Right, yeah. So the appliance sort of, we stopped. Paddington are already there. So we're the first machine that's turned up that's not on that ground. So I think we're the third machine. So with that now, you've got me and Spandex. We've got our BA sets on our back. We've got entry control board, 45 jets, dividing breach, hoses, I can't remember, loads of stuff. And we've bombed up.
So you're prepping standard high-rise to deploy
tall building,
on
So high-rise at the time in London was 1 floor below the fire, not 2 floors.
Yeah, for the bridgehead.
For the bridgehead, yeah. So it's like a forward, if no one knows what a bridgehead is, it's like a forward deployment.
Forward operating base type of thing
within
for
the
resources
building.
and whatever.
So we've bombed up, me and Spandex have bombed up, right? And we've took all this equipment up there and we are both sweating. And then we got told, right, now we need to connect the dividing breach because Paddington are using the hose reel from the building itself.
Right, yeah.
All right. So we've connected the dividing breach from the floor below, 2 45s up to the next floor, charged them. Still got a BA sets on our back. We're the ones that have ran up, sorted.
No one else. Cleveland hoses.
No one else is there.
You didn't do Cleveland hoses.
No. It was Dutch roll. So you just sort of fired it out.
That's a bag of bastards.
And then you've got your female and male coupling together, and you just bowl it out, and then. So I did all that, got all that sorted. And then we got told, right, go in that room, chill out. So we're in that room, 30 seconds, and they go, right, start up, right? So we've had nothing. We're starting up. And at the time, the number 2 had no communications. It was just the team leader had the comms through the mask.
Okay, yeah.
All right? So I had no access.
What sets were they? Interspira sets?
No, they were Draeger, but it was the old... comms. It was the old Draeger with no... it had no telemetry. Yeah,
they had no
PA90s, Panther Statner. Yeah. And that was what it is. Panther Statner.
Yeah.
PA90. 94. PA94.
Oh, was it?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So it was an analogue gauge. And how the radio worked was, you know where you've got on your front of your face mask?
Your LDV.
Your underneath your LDV on the old mask, you take it off. And then, so it was part of the mask, not the LDV. Yeah. Take it off and you put the microphone there. So it fed through your speech diaphragm.
Nice.
So it worked, but if you shouted, it's a speech diaphragm, not a shout diaphragm, yeah? And then what had happened there is fed through, and you had a radio at the side that was on your waist strap, and you had a plug connection that you'd have to push in, but it'd click and then you'd click it again. Yeah. The first click would allow you to receive the information, and then pushing it again would allow you to give the information. Yeah. This is pertinent with what I'm saying. So we get told now, start up. So we're starting up, and at the time, Spandex has put the cable in, they've done the radio check, and all he's done is stuck his thumb up.
You can hear it.
All right? Yeah. You can hear it. Okay, no real brief of information at the time. No media, because the media's in the building, into the room. So we've gone up the flight of stairs, and basically we're just to meet and support Paddington. So as we've gone in, Paddington have come out, and their brief was, stay low, it's fucking hot, right? That's all we got. So we get through to the door, and it's an open plan, and I am like, this is my first wear. Yeah. And I have to take it, Spandex did amazing, but you have to understand, in that situation, he's never been in this job either, and he's only just passed. Yeah. He's a team leader, he's got all the pressures of everything. Yeah. He's now realising he can't radio out and radio in, and we can hear with a hose, right? So we thought it was an open...
So they left the branch in there?
Yes, yeah, it was in there. So we thought it was an open branch. So Spandex has touched that and realised it's a burst length. So now, take into account, his hands are soaking wet, right? The hose is off the wall into the building somewhere. I've used that hose noise as a reference because it's near the door. All right. So when we talk about references, it's not about physical reference. We have got other points of reference. So spandex is following this hose. Now, at the time, London didn't really do a lot of real fire training. Okay. So we didn't have a lot of an exposure. What we were talking about earlier about understanding limitations. Okay. So what have I got to measure this fire with? Nothing. So listen, it was hot, right? I'm literally, my knees are on, I'm on my knees, my head is crouched to my knees, I'm sniffing my own arse going, this is fucking hot, right? So spandex is moving forward and you could just hear all these computers going bang, pop, bang, you know, it's banging everywhere. There was not really a lot of visibility of what's going on.
How were you connected to each other? Just verbal awareness?
It was just a hose at the time. Okay. Spandex is trying to get the...
Some people clip on all the time now. Personal, you know.
Yeah, we didn't. I mean, positives and negatives. If there's any obstacles, you're going to get caught and stuff. It's it's a political answer. So at the time, we're on this hose. Like, stay low. I'm staying low. Spandex is trying to sort the hose out. Like, it's trying to do the press to talk. Yeah. So he goes, Bertie, take over. So I take over. He comes behind me. He's trying to do the radio.
So it's not fully burst length?
No. Still use it. Yeah.
Okay, cool, yeah.
So we're using that. Now, there's an image on the Telstar House, the pictures, and you see a big flame that come out. We're in there at that time. All right, that's me and Spandex are in there when that occurred. Now, we could say it's a wind-driven fire. We can say it's a whatever, you flash over, whatever, right? All I know is it was dark, it went clear, and that fucking thing hit me, and it was hot, right? So I'm literally starfished on the floor, right? So I'm starfished on this floor going, Spandex is too fucking hot, right? And then there's half partitions, because it's an open plan office. Yeah. So Spandex went in between these half partitions to try and get through to the other side. Now, I thought Spandex was falling over.
Yeah.
So I've got my hand on his arse, holding him up, right? What I didn't realise is he's doing this, and he's fucking flailing, like he's going to collapse. And I'm holding him up to the heat barrier, going, you're all right, Spandex? He's going, I'm fucking dying, right? So we get over this half partition, and...
so you're still proceeding?
Yeah, well, what we're trying to do, I'm saying we need to get out, and Spandex is going, I know the way out. So what's happening at that time, and you have to take into account, this is my perspective, all right? My perspective only. So he's trying to get out, and he doesn't want to seem like that he doesn't know what's happening. He knows what he's doing. Yeah. Very similar to the station office in Gillinder Street, right? Keep quiet, let's carry on, because I should know, right? Have this mentality of should know, which he shouldn't, but he should know. I know that the burst lamp's behind me. And then I remember Spandex getting in this sort of like it was like a locker, where your storage bit with all your pencils and stuff like that. And he's in there, and then I suddenly hear the evacuation whistle go outside. So Spandex just comes to the floor, and he goes, I don't know where I am. So I said, follow me. So I then go back to where the burst length is, and this hadn't been a situation at the time. It came prominent later on, but all the ceiling tiles are gone. So you've got all the cables. So I've put my hand underneath these cables. So we haven't got the anti-tangle straps on the back of the cylinders at that time, or cutters. So I get underneath these cables, go right to where the door is, and I can hear him on the other side of the door, and I turn around, and there's no Spandex. So he's not there, right? And I remember going, I can fucking get out here. I can get out. The door's there, literally the door's there, and I don't know where Spandex is. And it's that choice.
And you've got no comms?
I've got no comms. I'm fucked. I don't know where I'm going. So I clap my hands, because this was a procedure in London.
Still do it.
And the reason being is speech diaphragm's not a shout diaphragm. You don't know what they're saying. But that clap travels really far. Yes. And then if you hear another clap, it's an acknowledgement. Yeah, definitely. And I know we've had this discussion. Yeah. I think it's brilliant. Yeah. But that's another day.
I get it when it's explained to you. Yeah.
So no clap. I'll go right. So I'll go back underneath the cables, and I see Spandex.
How's your body feeling at this point? What are you aware of is happening with your body? Anything?
At this moment, not really.
Okay, it's just adrenaline.
But they come to that point in a second. And then I go back to spandex and I get his BA set and I'm dragging him back.
So he's not moving?
So at the time, I'm dragging him back. Okay, because what I saw was him healed, like he was sort of slunched over. So I dragged him back. And what you don't realise is all the debris on the floor is catching the cylinder. So now I'm dragging the debris on the floor. All right, so that's coming through.
And you've had to stand up a bit to do this.
I can't. Do you know what? I can't. I think I was on my knees.
Well, you ain't dragging him lying down.
No. I think what I'm doing is I've got him on my knees and I'm just trying to pull him back.
Yeah.
And it's dragging. And then, and I've still got funny enough, I've still got my helmet cover at home for this.
Wow.
And I drag him. The debris gets caught. It gets hard. I've snapped the back plate. I've actually snapped the two handle straps at the back. Shit. By pulling him. I've snapped it. So I'm dragging him on his shoulder straps. And they get caught in the cables. Now, what they don't tell you about cables is how hot they are, right? So we talk about you get caught in the cables, you can cut them because you're tangled. But cables are metal, aren't they? So, and this is another thing I talk about. You know, when it's like 800 degrees at ceiling height, that means the metal's 800 degrees. And if you're caught in that metal on those cables, they're melting into your kit and your helmet. So that it was actually melting into the kit, and then the kit was sort of going over it. Does that make
yeah?
But they don't tell you that, do they? Because you don't.
Yeah.
Because all the plastic sheathing's melted, and all these cables have come down, and they're melting into your kit. And that was the point that Man Square, who have gone now as a station, came through, and they were trying to find us. And this is another interesting point. So at the time, the person that's in distress is the one that sets the ADSU off. Automatic distress signal unit. Mm-hmm. So theoretically, the person that's unconscious should set it off. That was what the policy was. I got a bollocking for this to start off with by an individual who I'll never forget, right? And I went there to thank them and all, and they bollocked me because I set my ADSU off and not spandex's. But as a group of two, we're all in distress. So policy did change. They rewrote the policy on this that you're a team, and as a team you set off an ADSU. So they couldn't find me, right? And I'm shouting, speech diaphragm, don't work when it shouts. So I set the ADSU off and I went into entrap procedure. So I just shut down, management breathing, and went with spandex. And it's at this point where on reflection, did I go into entrap procedure because it was a conscious decision? Partly it was. And the other part was, I'm that hot and I'm that tired that this was the bit I was talking about. I just want to go sleep. I was dying. Come back on what they said was, if we were there for another 30 seconds to a minute, we'd have died. That's how close it was. And I wasn't aware of that at the time, obviously. And so I just wanted to go sleep. That was pretty much, I was hot. I was just like, ugh. And they got me, they grabbed me, they took me out onto the stairs. And
so there's obviously another BA team ready to go. They'd heard the ADSU.
Yeah, so this goes by another person who I want to thank called Taz. So the reason why Taz set the evacuation whistle off was, these are all these little tactics in it. The hose stopped moving. So that hose stopped jerking, because that's when we dropped the hose. And then he set the evacuation whistle off. These are all things that hadn't really...
They're in a fully involved fire and they're not deploying any water.
These are things that hadn't been done for a long time. So I know Taz got a bollocking for setting the evacuation whistle off until people understood the bigger picture. But if it wasn't for him, that extra minute, we would have been dead. So they got me out. I'm on the stairs. They give me the Lairdale, the oxygen, right? So breathing. And then they pull spandex out, and with spandex, they've stripped him naked. And they're putting water on him, and they're trying to, of what I saw, they're trying to resus him. There was a lot of things there that we were doing. And I was suffering with heat, sort of stress, I've killed spandex. Spandex killed himself. I wanted to stand up. I wanted to sit down. I'm like, fuck you. And then fucking rah, rah, rah. And there was no bit. And I just went up and down, and I was just fucking agitated through the whole thing. So when I see videos of firefighters that have come out and they're sort of having a go at each other, or they're sort of pushing each other, and then people are going, well, this isn't professional. Well, you haven't been in that situation. Yeah. And that is not a normal behaviour. Yeah. And so you have to understand why. Not of, you know, it's not right. It doesn't look right. But we're human and we make mistakes.
Heat stress, heat exhaustion, dehydration.
So we're going through that, right? They take the Lairdale off me and they give it spandex. So I've got somebody's, they've just put it on and they're just in my face. Still need a piss though, don't I? Right? So I'm still needing this piss. I go, I fucking need a piss. And this guy says, just let it go. So I went, right. So I can let it go. Now, I don't do it often, but what I will say was I was hotter than my piss. My piss felt cold on my leg, right? So anyway, LAS wouldn't come up to our flight.
Ambulance.
So London Ambulance Service wouldn't come up. So we had to get things, Man Square, Paddington, all them, I had to get things together and help Spandex get down, carry him down. I walked down and then I was on the back of the ambulance. My heart rate was about 270. Of what I remember, it was phenomenally high, but I felt all right. And they had the investigation people come in, right? And do you know what so these people were starting to do the investigation. Do you know what the first question I was asked?
Why'd you stink of piss?
No, but brilliant. No, the question was, had I had a drink? Not, are you all right? Are you okay? Have you had a drink? Right? Then they said, who was the other person? I said, Spandex. So they said, well, what's Spandex's name? I went, I don't know, Spandex. Yeah. So I said, if you speak to the station officer at Kensington, he'll be able to tell you. He went, I don't think so, mate. It's a 20-pump fire. So, it was massive. So I'm like, oh, fucking hell. So anyway, go to Paddington Hospital, right, which oversees this building. You can see it out the window. And I'm thinking, I'm going to give all Johnny Bravo. So, you know, I've got my leggings on, I've got my T-shirt on, and I walk in, sort of Johnny Bravo into the hospital, right? Bearing in mind my heart's going 200 miles an hour. I get into the room and the doctor's there and I've got flash burns, so they've lubed me up with Vaseline and then they've sort of given me a drip, right? Yeah. And then Marv comes in, and Marv was the union rep for, like, the west of London, right? And he was part of my watch. And he comes in and he says, he doesn't say, you all right? He goes, fucking hell, Bertie, smells like an old people's home. He looked at me and went, Dirty Bertie Piss Pants. So my nickname, within that, I'm nearly dying, and my nickname's progressed from Bertie to Dirty Bertie Piss Pants, which stuck. Ah, dear, which was funny, right? So, Dirty Bertie Piss Pants. And anyway.
What were the extent of your injuries?
I just had minor flash burns and then dehydration.
Where on your body?
Just over my arms and my shoulders. Spandex had skin grafts. So Spandex, because at the time we were taught to just put the BA set tight on our shoulders, what it did do is it compressed the fire kit, so it radiated the heat through. Because how the fire kit works is like different kit, but the one we had at the time was line and para, I believe. So it was layered. Yeah. I think Bristol's like beaded, so it was a layered system, so it had air in between the layers, and it's that movement of air that keeps it cool. So because we'd done it too tight,
same principles. It's thermal barriers, like sleeping bags. Is how everything works.
So it radiated. So skin grafts on his shoulders, and boil in a bag because his hands got wet. So the gloves weren't burnt, but because he'd got all that water from the burst lens.
Moisture's a great conductor.
Yeah. He'd got like these balloon elephant fingers all over. Anyway, so we're getting just a little bit quicker. So at this time, right, I go to see Spandex, and Spandex is, I'm going to have to physically show you, right? So he's on the bed and he's on his knees. He's got his hands clasped together. I think he's just got pants on. He's got no top on. He's absolutely still, facing forward with the bed, with his eyes not even blinking, just rocking back and forth slowly. And I tried to separate his hands, and it was a phenomenal, I've never known strength like it. You could not move him. Yeah. And the nurse was on one side and I was on the other. And I said, it's all right, Spandex. Don't worry, Spandex. You're all right, Spandex. And the nurse said, why do you call him Spandex? And I said, oh, because he was caught in a gold lycra suit doing star jumps in front of the mirror. Next minute, Spandex, without blinking, slowly as he's rocking, moves his head to the left, looks at the nurse, then looks straight forward, doesn't blink, to the right, and then looks straight on. And that was it. Right? So the next day, I go to see Spandex, and he goes, you fucking idiot. I said, what's up with you? He said, my last name's Kemp, Spandau Ballet, Spandex. I went, oh, never mind. I went, oh. But he's married to the nurse and has 2 kids.
That nurse?
Yes. And has 2 kids. Yeah, I know, yeah. How amazing. Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah. Anyway, so just deviating a little bit, that night I went back to station, right?
Seriously?
Hang on, because this would never happen. So the station manager, the ADO, picked me up and I said, I do not want to go home. I don't want to go home. I want to go back to the station.
Wow.
And they said, okay. So they took me back to the station and then I got the station officer's room. They put me on light duties at the time there and I stayed the night at the station. That would not happen now. But that's what I needed. I needed to be with them at that time.
Process with people that have been through shared
Exactly,
experience.
yeah. I didn't want to go home. I just wanted to be with a watch. And then I went back to see, we went back to see Spandex the next day. And obviously I had that conversation with him. But what was funny was, so Spandex was in the bed and he was out on the window looking out. And Marv again goes, oh, Spandex, look at this. So Spandex turns and he gets the curtain and he pulls the curtain open to the burnt out building, Telstar House. He goes, flashback, 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 flashback. Right? There was obviously a number of other things, like images may have been put in the menu bit. So when the nurse opened, there was images and stuff like that. But it was all that sort of stuff. Anyway.
Yeah.
And what was funny was about a month later, the counselling rang me up. And they said, are you all right? But I was on my motorbike at the time, and the phone rang, and I pulled over, and I was listening to them. And I told them about the Dirty Bertie. No, I didn't tell them about the Dirty Bertie piss pan. Yeah, I did. I did tell them about the Dirty Bertie piss pan. No laughter, right? So then I stopped and thought, I'm not going to tell them about the flashback. I thought I'll leave it at that. And I didn't need it. I was young and whatever. It was only when I had my kid that I had probably 6 months. I had a complete breakdown. So this was years on. So this was 11 years ago. So it would have been, 6-7 years after the job. I wasn't with the watch. I was a watch manager at the time. I was doing something completely different. And I just fucking broke. It was just this bit of, my God, I'm a dad. I've got this child. If it wasn't for Taz, I'd be dead. And I hadn't recognised that at the bit. I wrote him a letter. Yeah. And because it was him that... Interesting, isn't it? If he hadn't have blown that whistle, I wouldn't be here. Anyway, so yeah. So it does, it's just that, it just affects you later on, doesn't it? So, I've had counselling on that and a number of other things, and I promote counselling. It's really important, definitely. But going back to the job. So I use it as learning points. So it's, about that bit of hanging loose, not doing too much. That's really important. Briefing, radio comms checks, referencing.
It's so much that.
Yeah. Sort
Entrapment,
of. So again, I went into training, about a year or 2 years later. And that's when people were saying, yeah, entrapment, I wouldn't use entrapment. And that's when I sort of went, no, I've used it, and that saved my life because it kept me still, it managed the breathing. It gave time for those people to find out where I was. I was off the wall, it was sort of obstacles all over the place, and they fucking still got us. and they got us out, you know. And so when the shit hits the fan, people will do it. And I think it's important that we give them those tools, entrapment procedure, set removal. These are all things that I think are tools that London never used to do set removal. They said, oh, we're not giving them set removal because we're giving them we don't trust that they won't take it off in inappropriate situations. And you think, but hang on, you're not trusting them. We don't give BA wearers incident command training. Right, we should do, because they're an instant commander in that situation.
As soon as you go through the door, I've got no idea what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
You can do whatever you like.
We've got to give them all that. We've got to give them all that decision making, the reviewing. You know, all the tools that we could possibly give them. You know, the flashover, backdraft, fire gas ignition, rainbow, sort of lasso, painting, pulsers. And it's amazing how we go to different services and there's different bits, and some brigades are really behind, some brigades are really advanced, and there's no real, you know, oh, it's got to be this cone, you've got to do this set droplet. Do you know what? If you make a mistake and you've put it on jet, do something with it and swing it around that room. Yeah. Because if you swing it around that room, then what you're doing is you're spreading that. Yeah. Exactly. And if it's too hot, get out, shut the door. So this was another aspect, Pete, right? I had no understanding and no measurement of fire against, right? I had nothing to measure it against. I think now people do. They've got real fire training. It's really important. And this is why I think it's really important understanding your limit, because in a controlled manner, because you know what you can and what you can't do, and you know this is the point of, if I stay here, I'm going to be here. So
most
I need to get back.
People's experience of 200 degrees is when you open the oven.
Yeah.
They don't know what it feels like to be in
Exactly. So when I spoke to Paddington, well, do you know what? It wasn't even Paddington. It was the statements after. And then I spoke to Paddington. They went in the job. So they went in, went out for 2 minutes, went in for 30 seconds, went out for 2 minutes, went in for 30 seconds, went out for a minute. Me and Spandex were in there for 15 minutes. We didn't go in and out, in and out. And do you know what? When I'm speaking to BA crews now, when I'm speaking to team leaders, when I'm speaking to sort of revalidations, and I'm saying to them that 30-odd minutes is your wear, it's nobody else's. Nobody else's. So, you know, go in that compartment and you've fucked up a little bit, right? It's too wide a cone. Or you've done a jet. And we fail people on, oh, it's not wide enough, or it's too much water. Fuck that. Whack loads of water in it, get out, shut the door, and allow the water to do what it needs to do. Yeah, so it's that anti-ventilation.
Yes.
Yeah, so do you know what? It's not about you should do it like this. It's if you've done it wrong, how do you deal with it? Because you can, and that's where we don't deliver training that we should do, which is what you spoke about earlier. That is the outcome.
Yes.
How you get there is up to you.
Give you all the tools.
And then what we do is we interview you after. We go, why? Why did you do that? Why did you do that? Why did you do that? I did that because of this reason. I came off the wall because it's concrete floor. I can see visually below. There's a door there, and I did this. Why did you leave your number one with the casualty? Why did you leave them at the stairs getting the hose while you got the casualty? Because I've got one room till I'm outside, and the casualty's breathing irrespirable atmosphere, and I'm saving savable life in a highly calculated manner. It's 4 walls. I'm straight out of there. I can see the light, and I'm still under verbal communication with my number 2. Kick them out. They're in the air. Then I'll go back to verbal communication with my number 1. I'll go back in. Right? We are allowing them then to build their dynamic risk assessment, and we're giving them exposure. So you can't give DRA if you haven't got experience and exposure. So we have a policy on dynamic risk assessment, but we do not create training to build on your dynamic risk assessment.
Yes.
So how are you going to do it? So we should give policy first training. Yeah. And then what we should do is we should give them exposure to problem-solving situations so that they can build resilience and able to do it. That we don't go policy-led. Yes. And that's sort of one of the things that sort of came from Grenfell, wasn't it? You know, it's about that. if policy doesn't work, how do we deviate? How do we deal with this? How do we do that?
When we look at phased evacuations or even stairwell procedures and stairwell protection teams and deploying above the fire and, you know, having the opportunity to put BA on when you see it relevant in your own personal dynamic risk assessment versus, no, as soon as you pass the board, you've got to go under air and try and climb 30 floors and achieve nothing. You know what I mean? That strategic flexibility.
And that's why it's important for people, you know, this bit of in and out of compartments, in and out, in and out, in and out. You know, don't use your... It could be that, and this is what I did with one of the crews that I took not long ago. They were doing this basement training, and they'd gone into the fire compartment. So it was a fire compartment. So there was a compartment, then a fire compartment. And I went, right, okay, so they made a bit of a mistake, and I went, okay, so just lasso it, just whack loads of water in there, round and round and round, and then end it at the fire. End it at the fire. Right, shut the door. Right, come into this room. Are you still hot? Yeah, boundary cool. So boundary cool this room. Yeah, come out, shut that door. Okay, now let's cool down. So they're cooling down, and then we open the door again. And it was so cool in that room again. So then, you know, because the flow path, so you've let the steam go, and now we go. So now it's cooler in that room, and then we open the door again. We allowed that steam to go out, and it might have been 4 or 5 times, and then, do you know what? We got them in there, and they put out that fire. And they not only did they put the fire out, they broke it. They got the pallets out the crib, and they put it all out, and that fire was out. You know, and that sense of achievement. And that's what you can do in that BA wear. We used to do training years ago where this is a situation. So it's about this is the objective. So you go into this room, right? So it's using a mix with fans. You go into a corridor, and then there's a room, and there's rooms on fire, and to the right hand side, what you've got is another room with a casualty in it with a window to the open atmosphere. And you get some people, what they do is go straight in, they get the casualty, and they drag them straight out. You get some people that put the fire out, and then they'll drag them in the smoke. And then you get some people that would put the fire out, they'd shut the door, they'd put the fire out, they'd put the fans on, clear all the air, open the door, and drag them out. And it's about that feedback. Feedback's really important of what's your objective and what do you achieve. So it's about saving that casualty, isn't it? But how do we do that? So the first crew have exposed that casualty to heat and an irrespirable atmosphere. Second crew exposed the casualty to irrespirable atmosphere. Third crew got that casualty out with, and not only that, they opened the door, got the casualty and walked straight out, you know, because it's completely clear. And it's your determination. If the casualty is not breathing and they're, you know, and they're on their way out, you might need to expose them to that risk to get them out quick.
Maybe.
If that casualty is breathing, unconscious breathing, it might be, I tell you what, I'm going to shut the door down, let them have that fresh air, let me deal with the fire, and then grab them out. It could be that they're completely conscious or whatever, shut the door, and I had one of them, right, where they chucked a radio in with the casualty, shut the door, and somebody outside was talking to them, just explaining to them what's going on while they're doing what they're doing. These are all different things. But what you've done is that person, or them, will learn from that because we feed back that. We think we've got to get the casualty out ASAP. The problem with getting the casualty out ASAP is we can expose them to more damage. One of the things we don't focus on is casualty management. You see them stepping on their heads and their necks and, you know, falling over them. And you go, but okay, we've got the casualty out, but there's a size 11 foot on their chest and they're dead.
They're dead.
You know, and it's all that bit that we need to sort of help build resilience with BA crews, and I think just doing a revalidation of a policy-led exercise doesn't benefit anybody. We're not giving them exposure because we're not getting the jobs anymore.
It's too prescribed,
and we need to give them that exposure. We need to give them those jobs. You know, I learned so much from that Telstar House job. You know, and I've learned from that, and then I cascade that what I learned from those people to other people. You know, the bit from down to the importance, even as an instructor. I never use the word in the real world. Hate it. Because, do you know what? What we're trying to do is create environments that is real world situations. And if we say in the real world, what's that telling me? What's the psychological effect of that? I'm dismissing what I'm delivering. It's not important what I'm delivering. So if I'm not listening to it, you as the person feeding it, it's not listening to it. Because I don't believe it, what I'm saying. I hate it in the real world.
Yeah.
No, this is real world scenarios and situations.
Training mode.
You know, whether it's gas or whether it's fire, you still get injured. You still get hurt. You can still fall over and smash your knee. You can still sort of, fall down the stairs, which I've seen. I've seen knees popped out. I've seen all sorts of stuff happen. Burns. It happens, so... Yeah, they are real world scenarios. It's not a cone saying there's a fire, that's the cone, pretend it's the...
Yeah.
We are creating those situations and scenarios, and we are limited with what we can do, I know that. But we have to take on board what we can deliver.
What's within our sphere of control is the way in which we deliver it, like you say. We may be limited by resources, but not putting limitations on your resourcefulness and your method of delivery.
Yeah. I do believe we have to be mindful, though, that where are we going and what are we creating? Because I think... we have to expose people to a calculated risk within training. And part of that calculated risk would be to encourage or create an environment of operational stress that you can't get in a training environment. I think we need to create situations of problems so that they can solve those problems. And we need to put people to a controlled limit. We need to expose them. We need to push people beyond what they think that they can do, to know that the equipment can do it and that they can do it. Because what I observe at the minute is, for the younger people coming in, the resilience is lower than what it used to be. So their abilities are lower. They give up quicker.
Yeah.
But you think, but you're still a human being.
Yeah.
You can still get pushed. You've just never been encouraged or pushed. And all these bits right from the beginning of school sort of activities and local sort of activities of where it's the taking part. It's not the winning, it's not pushing.
Medals.
These things that, they have a knock-on effect. And culturally, we're in a situation now where, sickness is on the increase. There's a lot more, we're needing more, there's more vacancies with manual labouring jobs and technical jobs, and because people just want a general X Factor stroke Instagram life, and they don't realise that you have to start from the bottom and work your way up. And if you want to be a firefighter,
it's not instant gratification.
If you want to be a firefighter, it's not just wearing the uniform and sitting on a fire engine going neenar, neenar, neenar. It's about helping the community through fire prevention. It's pushing yourself as a limit to the ability of what you can do. And I'm not sort of talking about this sort of beating chest and hoorah attitude. It's more about knowing your limitations and 1 minute pushing yourself to that, to the next minute having the empathy and the humanity to help people. And it's having that broad scope that makes you, I think, a good firefighter. It's not one or the other. It's having all of it, isn't it?
100%, mate. It's that well-rounded individual.
Yeah.
Mate, that's been absolutely incredible. It's really incredible.
We've touched on a lot.
Everything, mate. We discussed 30%
I hope I'm not bored.
Of what
the people that are listening, I hope I've not bored anybody.
I would say podcasts are like a great film, mate. If you've all watched films that we don't enjoy, which are too long and they're only lasted an hour, and then we can watch 3-hour films and it felt like 2 minutes. I always say there's nothing too long or too short of a podcast. It's whether or not the listener's interested in the subject, and I don't think there's a single subject we haven't covered in this. This is a smorgasbord of, it's like a buffet of everything to go into the fire service. And it's why I enjoy it so much, because people like you will probably never write a book, you might never do it, and I just think all of that experiential knowledge. This is like an audible time capsule.
There's other things we need to talk about. We'll talk about foster care, social services, and sort of that
round
aspect,
two. We will come back.
Do you know what was interesting as well? Was I was brought up with, I've got brothers, right? And my brother said to me before I joined the service, he said, "All right, I'm going to prepare you for." So my brother and his wife were both in the service. They're both retired now. And they said, we're going to prepare you for the service, right? Mm-hmm. I said, okay, yeah, bearing in mind this was before the internet and all these. He said, we've got this, it's called the spoon game. I'm like, right, okay, yeah, what's this spoon game? And he went, I'm going to prepare you so that you're not hoodwinked when you go to the station. All right, okay, no worries. So I'm there, right? And I'm there with his wife, and we've got this, like, metal... I'd got a wooden spoon, and his wife had got a wooden spoon. And you know the game, don't you? It's the bit where it's in your mouth and they put their head down and you try and whack them on the head, don't you, right? So whack them on the head, and then I put my head down, and then I get this almighty, like, right on my head. I'm like, oh, Oh, my eyes are watering, right? And I'm going, no, I'm not being beaten by my brother's wife. About 8 goes I do with this, and then I turn around, I see my brother with this massive grin with a metal ladle. Not wooden, metal. This is brotherly love, right? Ask me, how many times have I played the wooden game, the spoon game in the Fire Brigade? Ask me.
How many times?
None. And that's the point. My brother went, I'm going to prepare you for the fire service. I went, okay. Bosh, I had a headache for 2 days, and never have I ever played the spoon game in the fire service. That is brotherly love. That's what I was exposed
Character building as well.
Yeah, exactly.
We should put that on recruits development. I don't know how well it'll go down if I try and bring it into the selection.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because just before we end, I remember like how I cope with stuff is I've always valued banter.
Yeah.
And I think banter is really important, and it makes the world go round. Years ago, you know, you join the fire service, and if somebody was breaking a little bit, it would be like, ooh, let's keep going till they cry. You know, that's wrong. What I do believe is I think banter is really important, but I also think an environment where they have the opportunity to say, not today, and we respect that. That's really important. I've always had banter in it, and it's a place where we want to come to work and enjoy and have a laugh, and we spend, if not more time at work than we do with our partners.
Yeah.
And so there's going to be arguments, there's going to be issues, and we're going to have banter, and we're going to have disagreements. And I think sometimes we get too corporate. We don't realise that, and we don't take that into perspective.
Don't sterilise it too much, you ruin it.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and if we have partners with siblings, or arguments with siblings, or arguments with partners, what we do is we kick off, and then we sort of go our separate way, and then we come back again, right? And if you're around 14 or 4 people, you're going to have that. You're going to, in those 4 walls, you're going to have that argument and separate. It doesn't mean that we snowball it into a discipline. What it means is that we build conflict management into our training. I know I'm deviating again, because that's really, really important. And I think I stress that it's really important that we create an environment where we can take the piss, involve people in it, but then when they say, no, not today, we respect that, and we leave them alone, and then they get back into it when they want to. 100%. That's really important. I remember this is the guy's retired, and I had a really shit night with a lot of things. And I'd come into work to do a bit of training. This was this was the other service I went into. And it was just shit. And I turned up to do this RTC training, just instructor training. And I was there, and this instructor said to me, and he went, "Are you all right?" And I opened up, and I told him. And he went, "Fucking hell." He said, "I left station to get rid of this shit." And I fucking burst out laughing. And I went, that's what I needed. Set me up for the day. Right, set me up, detached me from home, brought me into work, and then I remember it, and I still tell him now about it, how it made me laugh. That's not for everybody.
No.
But for me,
know your audience.
That's how it worked. I'm having that sort of banter, and just the anchor. I've used work before as an anchor.
Yeah.
You know? To allow me to go through other disturbances in my life and problems, and I think also what I take into account is everyone's problems are relative to themselves. No one's is bigger than anyone else's. No. You know and you shouldn't measure your problem to somebody else's problem.
Worst things that ever happened to you is the worst things that ever happened to you.
Yeah, exactly.
And you feel like your world is collapsing.
Yeah, definitely. So, just if anyone's had the spoon game in the fire service, it'd be quite interesting to know, because I never had it.
You won't be the only one, I'm sure. Brother, thanks for that.
Oh, Pete,
we're gonna do
absolute
round 2.
Pleasure.
We will do round 2.
Well, that's if they're interested. They might not be bothered, you know. It might be
I'm interested.
Spud, potato, waffle.
People forget, but I only speak to people I'm interested in, so they'll listen on the
Oh, well, I feel valued. Thank you very much, Pete.
Cheers, brother.
All right.
The Firefighters podcast was created to recognise, acknowledge, inspire, and hopefully even motivate these incredible individuals who have chosen to be part of the first responder community. Our driving purpose is to create a legacy resource for the current and future generations of firefighters and first responders. We get some incredible feedback from listeners and guests, and as the podcast grows, our desire to create longevity and sustainability means that we are asking for the support of our listeners.
If you want to support the podcast, if you want to get discounts to our merchandise, hoodies, clothing, coins, patches, tallies, and also access to all of the incredible documents get shared with us from our podcast guests and sector leaders, then please head over to our Patreon page, and for just £3 a month, you can support the future of the podcast. Please finally hit that follow, subscribe, or rate button on the platform you're listening, and wherever you're around the world, please support your emergency services responders, and thank you for listening.